Fair, lovely Annie, your gentle ways have won me. You bring peace and joy and laughter everywhere. Where you go, the sunshine follows. You're a breath of spring and winter, and my heart and soul are always in your care. Gentle Annie, gentle Annie, and my heart and soul are always in your care. When you touch me with your finger, my cares and worries vanish, like the morning dew before the rising sun. Your eyes tell me you love me, and my soul is filled with wonder, and my love for you will live when life is done. Gentle Annie, gentle Annie, and my love for you will live when life is done. Well, you're a flower among the flowers, a bird song in the morning. You're the laughter of the children at the play. You're my hope, my joy, my wisdom. You're my reason just for living. You're my treasure, you're my very night and day. Oh, gentle Annie, gentle Annie, oh, my heart and soul are always in your care. When the mountains all have tumbled, when the earth has stopped its turning, when the winds don't blow and stars refuse to shine, when the moon has left the heavens and the seven seas are empty, I will still have gentle Annie on my mind. Gentle Annie, gentle Annie, I will still have gentle Annie on my mind. Gentle Annie, gentle Annie, I will still have gentle Annie on my mind. are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. They're filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. With my head I want to drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I think it's kind of funny, I think it's kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Let to feel the way that every child should. Sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Mad world. Mad world. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Enlarge your world. Mad world. I give thee all I can, no more, though poor the offering be. My heart and lute are all the store that I can give to thee. A lute whose gentle song reveals the soul of love full well, and better for a heart that feels much more than lute can tell. Though love and song may fail, alas, to keep life's clouds away, least to make them light and pass or give them a first day. And even if care at moments flings a discord o'er life's happy strain, oh, let love gently touch the strings, will all be sweet again. Oh, let love gently touch the strings, will all be sweet again. Greetings, friends. How you doing? This late hour, coming up to the witching hour. Yeah, how you doing? Hope all is well. Happy to see you. Whoever might be here live, whoever might be listening later on. Said I'd start up a hangout. Nothing in particular to talk about, but I'm sure I'll get through a few things. Let me try not to sort of dawdle or get diverted too much anyway, so I'll go over the songs as I normally do. First one, Gentle Annie. I thought it was an old traditional Irish song, but it turns out it was written by, let me just see who wrote that. I think I should have it here. It's a traditional American song, and Stephen, hang on now, I had the name up in Wikipedia because I was looking to see who wrote it, and I was surprised who wrote it. Because when I go through the lyrics, I reckon there's something very encoded in there indeed. And yeah, I have it here now. Just let me just, as I brought it up in Wikipedia already. I just want to get the name straight. Yeah, here we go. Oh yeah, lovely. Gentle Annie is a popular American song written by Stephen Foster in 1856. Tradition has it that it was written in honor of Annie Jenkins, the daughter of a grocer in Federal Street. Allegedly, sorry, not allegedly, Allegheny, Pennsylvania, named Morgan Jenkins. However, Foster's biographer and niece, Evelyn Foster, Momewek, M-O-M-E-W-E-C-K, how would you pronounce that? That just adds to my suspicions that we're dealing with another sort of character, crafted character, and a encoded message is passed on. These people or these creations are just conduits. Right, so we can look to the names for clues, possibly anywhere. Bear that in mind. Some sources say, so again, it's all some sources and nothing definitive or fixed. And yeah, with a name like Momewek, M-O-M-E-W-E-C-K, yeah. Some sources say it is Foster's farewell to his maternal grandmother, Annie Pratt McGuinness Hart. Oh gosh, we have the heart here. I didn't read this before. Anyway. His paternal grandmother was Anne Bartley, but there's very little versions or very little written about the man himself. Well, I guess I could go into his biography, but it's well, that'd be interesting now, wouldn't it? But see, that's diverting off. It's something I'll do myself. So probably another crafted character in and around at the time of Lewis Carroll as well, we're told, who's for certain a crafted character, never existed. So a man, whatever, played the part at the time, whether there was any need to. I mean, how do we know? You know, how do we know what went on? What went on? I'd say the turn of the last century. If everything can be crafted, everything can be fabricated, well, you know, I think we need to reconsider maybe everything and look for answers down a different pathway, if you will. We consider this whole adventure that we call if-el or life, if-el. That's excellent. And you can be sure that that's an intentional sort of division of the word if-el. We have the Eiffel Tower, if-el Tower in Paris, and where we also have the flame, the original flame for the Statue of Liberty, which represents the heart of Aristarchus and fundamentally your own heart as well. So yeah, something pretty special when we recognize that L references the material, if you will, relatively the lower aspect. If we outlive our body, if we're not material and we venture into materialism, then by selling our spirit short, if you will, spirit. Well, that's the biggest sin, isn't it, for all of us? And yeah, if, like, for instance, you find out at a later stage that all of your fellow man and woman are equally wonderful creators, gods, if you will, which we are. And I know I can decode the word God now, what it means, like, via the letters. Every wall is built via the bricks and the cement. The wall is just a summation of the core components, right? You can't talk about a wall properly unless you talk about the bricks and cement, because without them, there'd be no wall, or similar, similar ingredients. But yeah, Gentle Annie. So let me go through the lyrics and get you to pay attention, especially to the last verse. And Annie as well is a very sort of encoded, well, all words are encoded. So if a story is being told via the words, we would do well, in our own terms anyway, I'm not telling anybody what's what, to understand, or try to come to understand, why these letters, which construct which are the form of the word, as formulate the word is probably better, which then forms the picture in our brain, why these are constructed in the way that they are, and might there be any meaning attached to their instruction. Remember, it's as easy, the Jackson 5, Michael Jackson tells us it's as easy as ABC, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, break it down. First thing we're told is children, right? And yeah, look at it in that pure sense. And when we do, then, well, for me, there's 3 divisions or 3 distinctions being made, and we just take the A versus the V as an indicator, right? So we're made of the material, the part that's touching the ground, right? The serpent crawls along his belly. So in other words, the heart of materialism is what it represents. Forget about the literal stories. Yeah, so we have the material, which is down by the feet. Like, even if you look at your foot, it's in an L shape. Down about your loin areas, more especially, that heart of the material center. Then we have the head, H-E-A-D, right? You have that D in God as well. The G represents the groin area as well. It's associated with the L. I pointed out many times, LGTV here at the minute, and you probably saw a reflection of something. There's a bit of snooker on in the background. So I don't watch TV much, so just having something to distract me. I look around occasionally at is what I'm doing there. But yeah, LGTV. So the G and the L, the groin area, the G is for girls, Mother Earth, right? This is another representative of the heart or the core of the material. Whereas Adam then is the thought, right? And, there's no distinction really. Well, I could maybe go into a little bit more detail on that on another occasion. Why is the distinction between male and female? But me as male, anyway, can only speak as male. But when Adam is referenced, it is the higher aspects, the immaterial sort of connection, the thought, T-H-O-T-H, right? That's what it is. So the H is in the center then, which is the heart bridge between the material and the immaterial. And this is what the Liberty Flame represents in Paris. If you look in Paris, look it up yourself, you'll see no lady around, no androgynous lady, neither male nor female. You will see it, and it's a very simple, and it's pure and original form, because it's the heart of all matters. But anyway, did I start reading yet? Can't remember. I didn't, let's say. But yeah, so I'll read right through, and I won't say another word, but I'll get you to pay attention to the last verse especially. But also, like yesterday, let's not take it in such a personal sense. It's the story of all of us. So a general story is being told here, and we are indeed in a state of division. So once we recognize that division, then we can, well, apply all of these encoded, I'm going to say messages, into our own thinking, and work maybe whatever we need to work out. So anyway, from Stephen Foster. Fair and lovely Annie, your gentle ways have won me. You bring peace and joy and laughter everywhere. Where you go, the sunshine follows. You're a breath of spring and winter, and my heart and soul are always in your care. Gentle Annie, my heart and soul are always in your care. When you touch me with your fingers, my cares and worries vanish, like the morning dew before the rising sun. When your eyes tell me you love me and my soul is filled with wonder, and my love for you will live when life is done. Gentle Annie, my love for you will live when life is done. You're a flower among the flowers, a bird song in the morning. You're the laughter of the children at their play. You're my hope, my joy, my wisdom. You're my reason just for living. You're my treasure. You're my very night and day. Gentle Annie, my heart and soul are always in your care. When the mountains all have tumbled, when the earth has stopped its turning, when the winds don't blow and stars refuse to shine, when the moon has left the heavens and the seven seas are empty, I will still have gentle Annie on my mind. Gentle Annie, I will still have gentle Annie on my mind. Excellent, excellent. So when we were talking about the material versus the immaterial, and at the end, he stops talking about heart and soul. He goes to talking about the mind. So this is very important. And all bases are covered, but isn't it interesting? When the mountains all have tumbled, when the earth has stopped its turning, the mountains all have tumbled. That's why the mountains exist, because they are the detritus of once giant crystalline trees. All earth on earth, in its sort of destroyed form, if you will, is sand. Everything, all matter, is a decayed form of the original crystalline, which for the most part is sand. I mentioned this before about, and I had Brandy for a walk along the same bank this evening, and you take notice. Sandbags were placed up there a few years ago, and just with all the weathering and all of that, a top, like the sandbags, about a ton sandbag, and there's hundreds of them lined up to keep the floodwaters out, because there's people living sort of in the path there. But yeah, all along the top you have an overgrowth and a healthy growth of grass, and you can see the top layer of sand is actually transforming into this deep black earth, is the only thing you'd call it, right? So yeah, with a little bit more time, that's only 3 or 4 years, a little bit more time, you can see how the thinnest layer, especially at the top of the earth, can form. So everything is sand. My question goes out to anybody. Tell me we're all flat earthers, especially. Ballers, ball earthers, I mean, they're so transparent, aren't they? Once you can get them to not be able to answer even the most preliminary questions, they're shagged. You know you're not dealing with an honest inquirer, and then you can just say fuck it and move on. That's the way I look at it now. And some of the simplest questions are the most difficult to answer for them, because again, they're following a lie. For the most part, any honest spinning ball earther will see the merit of a level and stationary earth, and with more and more evidence gathered, will just be copper fastened in their newly held position. I was out walking the dog tonight. I saw a few people with cameras. It was sort of dark, so whatever they were doing. But I've done it before, so anyone with cameras, I'll just stop them and say, well, can I just ask you, I stopped you with a camera because I saw your camera there. Have you heard anything about, I'll just sort of give a spiel about 30 seconds. If you heard anything about this debate or this argument that's going on at the minute, whether we live in a flat and a stationary earth, and then I just went straight in with a camera. You are limited by the mathematics according to the sphere ball. So if you can pick up targets that you're seeing in direct sight greater than the alleged curvature, then there's a major problem here. And indeed, you find many examples. They're in abundance. So yeah, that will start you off on your initial question. So after about a minute or two, that was it. Left it there. All the best to you. That's all the best you can sort of hope for, you know what I mean? In terms of having the same arguments again and again, yeah, once you realize that you're not dealing with honest inquiries, you move on. Because there's other stuff like this. When the mountains all have tumbled, when the earth has stopped its turning, well, that's already happened. The earth is not turning, right? The earth, as we consider it beneath our feet anyway, is not turning. There's something else turning, and that's the luminaries, and whatever the source or the cause of the luminaries is, which has been identified as ARISTARCHUS. So yeah, this is telling us of a reality now, right? When the winds don't blow and stars refuse to shine, when the moon has left the heavens and the seven seas are empty, I will still have gentle Annie on my mind. Gentle Annie, I will still have gentle Annie on my mind. So a brilliant song. If you want to hear it, go into YouTube and just type in Tommy Makem, M-A-K-E-M, or just Gentle Annie. I'm sure more people have covered it. So that was my version. Yeah, so again, try to sort of externalize it in the sense that it's not just one man's story about his own feelings towards a lost love or a remembered love. There's a greater story being told here, and it's clues like that, for me anyway, say a lot, and just probably confirm, not that I'm even too bothered if I'm wrong or not, but confirm for me that people like Stephen Foster or Charles Dodgson. He of all the characters in Alice in Wonderland, the menagerie of characters, he was said to have identified the most with the dodo, who makes a very, very brief appearance, and in the overall scheme of things doesn't seem very significant at all. When we realize that this is the narrative being passed to us, we see it's a clue. He was said to be related. He's said to be called Dodo. Just remembering now, he's said to be called Dodo Dodgson because he had a stammer as well. So Charles Dodgson, what's your name? Charles Dodgson. So again, another pointer. But yeah, I reckon this character, Stephen Foster, is just another crafted character, and yeah, the greater story has been told through his or through the efforts here. So it's just about us coming to appreciate everything in our own lives. I'm just not saying that it may apply very specifically to you. It doesn't have to, you know, but I'm just saying that in general, this is what we should be open to. And I guarantee you, you will find lots of clues in your own life because all bases are covered. Stephen Foster or Alice, Charles Dodgson, Lewis Carroll, just other characters in the greater stage play here. You know, we've plenty of them on Flat Earth here. We had a great performance at the weekend, the Denver conference. All theater, you know, theater within theater. So get dragged into it all you like, but if you do, and I guess that's your own business. You've no one else to blame. The absurdity of it all was made manifest. So yeah. Anyway, that's Gentle Annie. So that distinction, yeah, is being made between my heart and soul, and then my mind, right? So my soul, my heart is that bridge. That is definitive. We all have hearts, right? But that's that bridge between the immaterial and the material. And my soul then is part of the heart, if you will. It's that ethereal sort of thing. And of course, soul is an anagram of you, sol. Once we have the soul fish, and a man can feel soul and alone, you know. So 4 different meanings, but all with the same sound. These are clues for us. So yeah, for me, there's absolutely no doubt that we're of a greater immaterial source, and whatever we're doing here, it's an experience. You know, we are the experiencer, but we can recognize that we're going through an experience. And well, again, when you look for clues, lots of clues everywhere. You have to be careful at every turn, but as I see it, simplify things. Think like children. And well, that's where Flat Earth gives us a sort of a solid grounding, maybe the first time in our lives. So you can get stuck there, that's your own business. But yeah, at the end of it, I don't think if you have progressed, or if you haven't progressed after a certain amount of time, you won't be happy with yourself in the long run. Because what's the point in getting so far when you know, there's if you will, a greater game in play? There certainly is, and trying to figure out that is the question. You know, there's so many distractions and there's so many opinions and points of view thrown at you, but I think we're all up to this, and we can simplify things. You know, I think we'll all be very surprised just how obvious, maybe in one sense, and how simple. Simplicity is beautiful. Simplicity is genius. Everything is. That's ultimately what I think. You know, we've been born into sort of a foreign land and taught a foreign language we don't quite understand, but now we can hope to unravel it with, as I say again, a flat earth sort of firm foundation, and knowing that, you know, we are central to something, as opposed to knowing for definite that we were central to fuck all, neither time nor space. Yeah. That's a massive difference, and it should accelerate your sort of understanding of your own self. You know, these are all questions that we share in common. Who are we? Where are we? What the fuck is going on? And well, yeah, when we look at it as maybe, in one sense anyway, a great adventure, great game of life with clues everywhere, well, then I think great progress can be made. And well, that's my point of view, and I'm sticking to it, even though I haven't a fucking clue what to do from here. But who knows where answers will come from, honestly. Yeah. Although I have a little bit of a clue, but maybe talk about that a bit later on. So I'll leave that song there, the lyrics there, even though I could talk about them for ages. I don't want to. So the second song, Mad World, excellent. I heard on Nathan Oakley's. Don't listen to that too much these days, not live especially anyway. It's like the same. It's controversy is constantly courted, and it will be picked up, and then counter arguments will be smashed. You know, but the people will never admit losing the debate. It will just be a Groundhog Day over and over again. A few variations thrown in, a few new faces. So is the nature of things. You can get stuck there or not. That's your own business. I heard this from Travis, who I think Plain Truth is a Plain Truth. And he was singing it without any accompaniment. Excellent. So it reminded me, lovely song. And I've only sang it a few times. I don't think I've ever brought it up and went through it completely. I'm probably missing out a few instrumental bits there or something. But I sang it as a nice sort of brief middle song. So yeah, let me go through who sings it actually. Gary Jules Verne. All right, Gary Jules. And look, we can all relate to the story being told here as well, because it's us. You know, this is not external. All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I want to drown my sorrow, no tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take when people run in circles. It's a very, very mad world, mad world. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, made to feel the way that every child should. Sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it kind of hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Enlarge your world. Mad world. Yeah. Again, we can get the flat earth references, and you know, an argument to be made that that's not what he's talking about. But people run in circles. Well, just by standing still, you're running in circles in one sense on a spinning ball, aren't you? Mad world. The choice of the term world as well. If you look at it, it's L inserted into the word. So when there was nothing else in the beginning was the word. So the world was crafted, and it's the heliocentric world, right? The heliocentric means the material. Right, the H, heart bridge center, is after descending, if you will, to the L, which represents the material. So we have HL, hell, right? Again, I mentioned this earlier on. O is the top, but a few letters are also associated with OD is another one, and we are actually divided in four. Where does the circle, right? So which is the no end and no beginning. That's the circle. It's everything. That's why when you incorporate the material, we get from zero, which is nothing, which is no such thing as, it's an impossibility to imagine anyway, at least. When we twist the circle, we get the infinity, which is everything, right? So it's complete and polar opposites. One stems from the other. Infinity is also an undefined term in mathematics as a zero. So go figure that you can describe reality using unreal, undefined terms. It doesn't make sense. And well, that's why math can never describe reality. And especially when there is I want to say, a game in play to fool you, right? Yeah, but clues everywhere, and we can all relate to that. But maybe it's a necessary thing, right? Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. So maybe that's the last day you're going to feel good when you enter this world. So yeah, just to say about world again, we have the word and the L inserted into the word. So the word is the O, if you will. When we come into the material, then our heart is created. Heart, earth, anagram, ether is also an anagram if you think of the old way of spelling where the A and the E are combined, which is purposeful as well. EA Sports, it's in the game. Whole E, we have two sides to us. This is what it represents. E is the half, the infinity, right? So when we enter the material state, the O is twisted and we become the infinity. I mentioned before, when you put infinity on its side, very close to dodo, and indeed that's what it represents, and that's what the dodo does represent, that divided state. So when you divide initially from the O, you get the 8, right? So the 8 then divided in 2 gives you a 3 and a 3, if you will. You see, so we're actually divided in 4, but this is by way of being introduced into the material where we're all born into sin, right? So in S we're born into. So think of a 3, or think of how you could cut up an 8, right? So not necessarily, you don't cut it right down the center. You're dividing it into 2 halves. When we have an S, with the backwards S combined, there we get the infinity sign again. So to untwist that, then, well, I guess for the most part, we'd have to wait till we shed this mortal coil, leave the bodies behind. But I'm thinking if it is all a grander game, transcendence is possible. But, what are you willing to achieve it, I guess, ultimately? How far are you willing to go to find out? It's a question for the individual. Yeah. So made to feel the way that every child should sit and listen. I was certainly never that way with my own Steve. Never. I tried not to be anyway, the best I could. I always thought it as well that, in one sense, he's the father. I'm learning from him. I'm the son. But it was never a situation where you're dealing with, because I knew it myself. I had such early memories of consciousness that you're not dealing with a dumb thing here, it's just sort of not thinking or not capable or not understanding in a sense, it's like talking to a Chinese man. You could chat away, right? And you would have pure intent. You'd understand you're saying something, but not have a clue. Well, what are you talking about? Or vice versa. I don't mean to pick on the Chinese, but I think it's funny that if you ask a Chinaman to say Halle Berry, he'll say hairy belly. So I don't know where he gets that. But yeah, that's the way I always looked upon my own Steve. And I guess our own sort of minds are formed or definitely influenced by our own experience ourselves as youngsters. And yeah, worst thing you could do, isn't it, when we think about it, is send our children, especially to schools these days, although we're made of sterner stuff. And yeah, who knows? I mean, ultimately, I'd say the future is already written, so someone has won. Either the good guys or the bad guys. You decide what to do from there. Yeah, hello teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Oh yeah, I went to school, I was very nervous, but no one knew me. Exactly the same. I can remember first day at school and hated it, bawling like, what's going on here? What's going on? And just didn't settle in, but luckily I changed school for some reason. Yeah, when we were moving house, 4 years of age, and got on much better at the other school, although still didn't like it, thrown into fucking madness. Very religious school, and it was called Salesians. Salesians are a religious order, and it was all manner of religious iconography everywhere, and all manner of prayers, etc. So all manner of nuns. I mean, teachers for 3 years. I remember distinctly going up and asking the teacher, "Can I have a look behind your veil? Just have a look at your hair." I think that was before I was leaving, maybe about 5 or 6. And I think I got a look. I was really surprised as well. Really short hair. You never see women with short hair, especially women in some sort of position of authority. Anyway, yeah, we can all relate to these. So now I suppose I'm grateful in one sense, understanding what's in my own terms, anyway, what Christ represents, what Jesus represents. Again, we're born in sin. So when we have the two S's together, the 2 is the S, right? So then we bring the 2 together, we get the 8. And now we have to untwist that to get to, I guess, the immaterial state within the material. Although, you know, that's it's easier said than done. But Jesus, yeah, J-E, that E is central because we have, again, 2 sides, right? Or 4 sides more specifically when we twist the 0. And yeah, Jesus, S-U-S, you're bringing the 2 S's together for that level of completion. And then Jesus was raised from the cross, right? Raised from the dead. So we're at the heart center, a leaning, a tendency towards the immaterial. This is what the 9 represents as well, as opposed to the 6, right? So the 9 represents a immaterial foundation or an immaterial center, and the 6 represents a material center. And well, yeah, it's the story of the soul, right? So each letter, yeah, will fit into one of those specific categories. The O for the crown of the head, you know, if we go down like here, cross section. If you think about the brain, a D will also fit in the T at the top. The H then has the M center. The X part of the H, because it's centered. The L then, for instance, is the material, the lower aspects. The G also applies there to W because they're pointing downwards, right? So like children almost, if we understand that the 3 distinctions there, then each letter will have a place within that categorization. And a perfect F is another that's associated with the upper letters, the immaterial. If you think about the word fall, the fall of man, F, A, downwards, L, L. So we're ending up in the immaterial or the material realm. And as I say, that's where the H takes a trip downwards to hell. For risk of repeating myself, I suppose everything is a repetition these days, but that's exemplifies what I'm talking about here is the heliocentric model. They've made everything material and there's nothing beyond. So we're after coming out of that. So yeah, how can we start to view things differently and think in a different terms, I guess, for ourselves? That's the ultimate question here, isn't it? No matter who's listening or not, what can I do about that? Just to talk on. It was good to talk. Just pretend there's no one listening, in one sense. Yeah. So I don't need to go into dreams there. Dreams are a fantastic thing. A great dream this morning. Well, it was a great dream. It was good. Yeah, very vivid dream. And yeah, I guess we can relate to that. The dreams in which I'm dying. I'm not sure if I had any dreams in which I was dying. Probably definitely did over the years, or the best I've ever had. Well, to say life isn't a dream. It's the last question we're asked, well, within the main body of the work anyway, in Alice in Wonderland, is who is having the dream? Is it Alice or is it the Red King? That's a very interesting question. And then you're left with a stanza, just a composition, and that's the last question. Another question, which is a dream. So is it Merrily, life, is life but a dream? That's the last question we're left with in terms of the main body. But there's more to that story as well, because we found a discarded chapter from probably book for book, the most famous and most significant book ever written, book for book, Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through Looking Glass more especially. So to find a discarded chapter and attach a special significance, intentional significance to it, very special indeed. That's the wasp in the wig. The wasp in the wig. So we have the 2 W's as well to bring together. But that's a whole different story. And part to the same story as well. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Yeah, enlarge your world. Mad world. Yeah. So once again, word and world. L is inserted into the word, right? The 0 dimension, as opposed to the 3-dimensional, the solid, versus the ethereal, the immaterial. And well, this is where our heart center, our earth center, our ether center. Yeah, this is where it plays a central role. So you can't bypass the material, but you can understand that it's not the only component at play here within you, especially. So, and specifically, there's no one else outside of you. So, yeah, that's Mad World. So hope you enjoy that, and maybe definitely go onto YouTube and listen to the original. So fair play to Travis for singing that a cappella, and I said I'd give it a go with guitar there. But I missed my piano a little bit because I could. It's very simple. It's only 4 chords as well. But all the best songs are the simplest songs, chord-wise and structure-wise, anyway. So yeah, moving on to the last one, My Heart and Lute. I'm not going to say much about that. And my heart, my earth, and lute, Etal, star, my earth and star, or ARISTARCHUS. And that was another reference from Alice in Wonderland, and that was my own composition in terms of the music. The lyrics were already there, and you can't corrupt those. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I played it every, and I'll continue to do that, or whatever else I play, I'll continue to do that. I was thinking about Gentle Annie just earlier on, and I said no, I wouldn't do that. So I was thinking about maybe possibly changing some of the words up, incorporating, yeah, the one and only ARISTARCHUS. So when the mountains have lost their, when the mountains all have tumbled, when the earth has stopped its turning, when the winds don't blow and stars refuse to shine, when the moon has left the heavens, when the 7 seas are empty, I will still have I will still have ARISTARCHUS on my mind. ARISTARCHUS, ARISTARCHUS. Yeah, excellent. It would fit in nicely there into that sort of cadence and the type of song that it is, and it would fit in actually more specifically because I know that something like that has been hinted at in the song itself, though it was said to be written in 1856. For me, the truth is known from the outset, and while everything is constructed around it, if we are on a construct, you can decide that for yourself. What the nature of it is, in reality, for me, we're still in Genesis 1. Reread, I should do that in there as well sometimes, reread Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 to show you just how obvious it is that there's 2 different stories being told here, featuring 2 different powers. God in Genesis 1 and Lord God in Genesis 2. We have to distinguish this, and then we have to understand that, well, not understand, but consider that we are still in Genesis 1. If you read the words carefully, and I don't have them exactly verbatim, but it's what's not said, you know, how you can understand or take it in a slightly different manner. And God created man in his image, male and female created he them. Created he them, male and female, within one, right? Also, all of the fruit and berries and vegetables and all whatever, all fruit from the tree were there for us. We weren't there, instructed to slaughter and kill animals. You know, it's our dominion, so we have no need to do that. But then we venture immediately, and you'll notice in the Bible, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 sort of overlap. Another clue for us as well. So you think that Genesis 1, if it was a different story, that it would just finish in chapter 1, and then chapter 2, we'd have a sort of distinct secondary version, which is what the official story is, outside of all the nonsense. That's what they tell you from a different source. The same story is being told, but just in a different manner, in a more sort of magnified manner. And a case can be made for that, but a case can be made for the heliocentric spinning, careering ball Earth model as well, that we know is utter nonsense and fantasy. So, yeah, when we understand then that Adam and Eve signified this venture into duality, The duality, its primary sense, is the immaterial versus the material. And it's not some airy fairy talk, as I've talked about before. It's something we can all relate to. The material is the countable, anything that has a length, breadth, and depth. This is what you consider the material, and the immaterial then is anything that's not. So, in other words, your thought, right? A thought is real. You can't count it. How can you quantify it? It's the same in a dream, for instance. And in our dreams, we're always ourselves. We can always relate to ourselves. We're nobody else. And if you were somebody else, then you would yourself being somebody else, but you're still yourself behind the mask. Patricia Steer, hi and welcome to Flat Earth, another hot potatoes. So, just to talk about Patricia a little bit, I made a comment on a video about this whole farce, the conference. But Patricia was designed to look good head on. It's only when she turns in profile that there's something fucking weird going on. I'm not sure if anyone else noticed this, but it's true. Like, and I'm not afraid to say any of this stuff. I know it's all farce, and I'm certainly not part of it, even though I know fucking nearly every other fucker is. How many other? I'll ask you this question, right? As I look at the clock, 3:33. I'll ask you this question. With all the main flat earthers, the top contributors who've been patiently and stoically blasting out the same stuff on a continuous basis, how many of them do you know have called out other actors on flat earth, other people put in place on flat earth? How many? Even sometimes, you know, when it becomes almost compulsory to call people out because it's so obvious in some cases. I don't know very many. And I'd ask you to consider that yourself and give the people, it doesn't matter, forget the judgment. You just want to identify them to your own satisfaction, first of all, as people who are playing a part, right? Who have gates to keep and will go to a certain extent and go no further, but will refuse to call out their fellow thespians, if you will, people put in place. So, yeah, I'll ask you to ask that question about whoever you follow. And, well, yeah, we learn more about what people won't talk about as opposed to what they will. Did you hear anyone talking about ARISTARCHUS? People are thinking about it, though. Why wouldn't they be? Because even according to the heliocentric model, to go to the other side of the fence, they're fucking told that ARISTARCHUS is one of the most mysterious creators on the most mysterious object in our system, the moon. So, you know, that's a point of interest, right? Point of interest. No matter what side you're on. But no, the people, I knew this about the dodo as well, and I picked up on it. Because it's so populated with infiltrators and people who are there to go so far and no further, no one's going to pick up on this, especially if it's on point. And there is this real significance to it, which I'm absolutely gone well beyond doubt in any way, shape, or form, that there is the utmost significance to it. But yeah, I knew that at the time. It's exactly the same with ARISTARCHUS, and ARISTARCHUS is the next step to the dodo. You know, it's a sort of a natural progression to come to that realization or whatever. It's the way it is. So it is, but no one else is talking about that in the same sense. But in general, yeah. If you're coming from an honest position, what are you going to do? Set your gate when you come into Flat Earth inquiry here? You know, I'm going to set up a channel here, and this is going to be my structure. I'm going to talk about this, and I'm not going to go here because why? You want to make money. You're just you're savvy to the selling aspects of things. What is it like? Why would there be a gate? Why, for instance, wouldn't you talk about many different things especially over long periods of time? You know, and some of the things are more important and pertinent to us as individuals as than Flat Earth. Absolutely. If we find out somewhat where we are, well, who the fuck are we then? So if we're being defined by what we think others think of us, no matter who they are, from the Pope to the pauper, well, you know, who are we really? Let's get that straight. So there's no reason why every Flat Earther shouldn't be aware en masse of the legal name fraud. Yeah, Flat Earth, obviously. The luminaries, what may be, you know, going on, encouraged to venture into speculation in that sense. And with proof available as well. That's all I'm going to say. Proof all available. And, well, stuff like 9/11 or media fakery in general, and fake news stories. 9/11 especially, because we've all come here via pathway. I don't think there's one flat earth you'll meet who will question, or will not question that the moon landings were fake, you know? So what about greater events, 9/11, for instance? No, you don't get many in that. You get a lot of flat earthers who take it very personally when you start talking about media fakery and victim fakery in 9/11. Yeah. So another tell. Maybe it's just easier for me to tell. Maybe I'm wiser, purer. Huh. Yeah, maybe. I don't think so, though. We're always smart, always wise. We've just got wrapped up ourselves, and we need to shake ourselves and understand that in one sense, this isn't a sort of a communal effort. The whole flow of flat earth inquiry has been controlled from the outset. And if you want to judge it in terms of the media coverage, well, then you'll be caught up in the pre-scripted narrative, you know. Don't forget, there's still much for you to learn. And ultimately, that's all there is for you to learn. Maybe when you learn, then everything changes. Actually, I'm absolutely certain everything changes when you learn. So I can leave that there. I have another song I'm going to sing tonight, or in a bit anyway, and I'll just sing it a bit louder as well than I did the last night. So I'll get that going a bit. Going a bit. Yeah, okay. Let me go into chat. Just say hello. Sort of terrible in general about. Oh yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, that's grand in the corner. Yeah, okay. Let me go into chat. Yeah, that's fine. It lights up when the screen is on here, so that's cool. Put that down to look better in 144p, even though I leave on high definition purposefully, you know. Okay. Yeah, okay. How you doing, everybody? Is that Tim? How you doing, Tim? You're the first name. Well, just a glance, but you're the last comment here, so one of the first names I've seen. It stinks, but not to the degree, in my opinion. Well, if that is Tim, yeah, what's going on here, Tim? You're the main man, Tim Osman. Tim Osman is when you get into conspiracy circles, the supposed name of Osama bin Laden when he came as an undercover agent to America. It's all fucking fabrication, and Tim here knows a bit more than that. But Tim, why don't you do your comparisons with Barack Obama and Will Smith? You wouldn't dare, Tim, would you? Like you wouldn't use your computer skills to compare the Milky Way with the swathe between Eratosthenes and Eudoxus on the moon. Because you'd find a match, wouldn't you, Tim, too easily? And remember I told you that. You can make yourself famous by making that comparison, because I'm so certain that it's fact, and you'll necessarily only come to the same conclusion, but you can't do that because, well, you're acting your part. And look, all we can do is understand this, which you want us to anyway, I think. And if not, well, that's your own business, Tim. If you're not doing all this for the love of your fellow man, well, woe is you then, I suppose, in one sense. That's all I can say. We can't escape from ourselves. We can't escape from our dreams. We know what's right and wrong in our hearts. It's written there from the start. And that's good, actually, isn't it? We know what's right and wrong in our hearts. It's written there from the start. ARISTARCHUS. So yeah, anyway, yeah, that's Tim. But well, the whole thing is controlled, Tim, and all of that nonsense about Mark Sargent being offended and walking out. I haven't even looked too much into it. Just know it's all nonsense at this stage. Let me ask you a question as flat earthers, though. Who is this Robbie Davidson that's taking front and center stage and in one sense representing truth, right? Flat earth truth. Well, let me tell you who Robbie Davidson is. Robert, first of all, David's son. Robert, so what's in the name? Robert Davidson. But Robert Davidson was introduced to us via Brian Mullen. So you remember Brian Mullen, who added a sort of a professional face to Flat Earth Inquiry. He didn't add anything new in particular. He sort of corralled attention and effort around a forced line experiment, which ultimately ended up in being I think abandoned. It didn't go anywhere. But outside of that, he didn't bring anything new. He put a bit of clarity to some arguments and made it sort of simple for people. But that's what a lot of these characters do, right? Yeah, but when he found the Bible, then when he'd garnered an audience, when he was promoted by all the usual promoters, think back to the people who had the Gleason's map up on their wall before anyone else. That's little clues to themselves that they're in on this, and I know other people ordered it on the back of that, but all of the same faces that promoted the Gleason's map. So yeah, it's the same, promoting characters like Brian Mullen. Nathan Oakley is a big one here in the West Side. So before Brian Mullen left the scene, he had a very happy story. He refound Bible literalism, refound the Bible. He married. I think there was even possibly a child involved. And then suddenly he leaves in a blaze of glory, right? So there's mysteriousness about it. Everything we find out then later on that he's possibly, after losing his job, got in trouble with some authority or other and got admonished or worse. And yeah, very, very sad, very sort of unjust, and we can all relate to it. We're all sort of emotionally connected and dragged in. But as it turns out then, he was responsible for the first Flat Earth Conference in cooperation with Robbie Davidson. So now Brian Mullen's left the scene. We're left with Robbie Davidson, whoever the fuck he is. This tall, very, very strange-looking man who blinks. I think I counted him blinking one time up to about 90 or 100 times per second. That's crazy, crazy blinking. So whoever he is, and I could say who I think he's probably representative of in one sense, but whoever he is, yeah, the whole thing was orchestrated. So don't forget that Mark Sargent, Patricia Steer, they're all players put in from the very outset, and all of this theatre within theatre in regards to this Logan Paul. Isn't it interesting? His name is Paul, or L. Paul, Appel, yeah. Yeah, so don't be sucked in by convincing, semi-convincing anyway, theatre within theatre. That's all it would be, you know. And I think if you've come this far, you can see through it anyway. And look, even if you have difficulty seeing through it, I hope you've withdrawn from these crowds or these groupings to a big degree. Honestly, it'll take you nowhere. It'll take away your individuality. And what the likes of Robbie Davidson are there, and what the church are there in general to represent, is Bible literalism. So they're in that material realm. They're stuck in that material realm. And, you know, we have to understand this. This is when we came to Flat Earth. The Bible was waiting at the door for us, and there the literalists pointed you to many, many different passages. Rob Skiba, let's say Knowledge Scavenger, all very fine characters, very great intelligence to them, and very clear and cogent arguments when you first encounter them. But as you go through the mill, then, if you will, you soon realize, hang on, there's something not quite right here. And then as you go on, you become absolutely certain of it. These people who maintain the exact same position from the outset, remember, they were all given very, very cogent and intelligent flat earth arguments, but we already know the earth is flat, but they will cling religiously then to Bible literalism. You know, so this is the issue. It's all about externalization. You know, again, attaching a material reality, if you will, to something that was never meant to be taken literally. This is in the mind. This is in the mind of God, if you will. This greater story, and this is how it's been told via symbolism, via metaphor, via thought. So if you cannot apply it to yourself, then it doesn't apply, because all there is you. This is why Jesus is the Son. Right, we're led down the pathway. The clues are there for us. Jesus is the Son. When we figure out what the Son is, Aristarchus, then we can see why one would have been constructed to represent the other. So the fictional to represent the real. we know that the sun, we know that we appear to get warmth and light from the sun. We know the moon has its role. We note in a flat Earth, up close and personal sense, that the sun and the moon appear to be the same size in terms of a full moon. So we know no coincidences as well. So we can say that one and the other are strictly related. So yeah, we note all these things, and we rethink everything. So yeah, when you have groupings like this bringing you back to fundamentalism, yeah, beware. No matter how good their flat Earth arguments, as I told you, flat Earth is just the beginning. Much more wondrous story in play here, and well, who knows where it leads ultimately, all the way to truth, to true realization. And I think that that will come from within. If that doesn't come from within, it ain't coming from nowhere, kid. Huh. That's for sure. That's what I think. And I think we all enter this experience for the purposes of trying to figure it out, or purposes of figuring it out here. I think when we, if we ask the right questions, you see, if we don't ask the right questions and we pop our clogs, go out, you know everything. Yeah, for fuck's sake, why did I waste my time doing this when, you know, I could have been doing that? Or even if we're on the right path, yeah, proper clogs, flat Earth only takes us so far. You go, oh, for fuck's sake, why did I stop there? The clues are everywhere. You know, something particularly sticks with me when, and it was a completely different topic, about 2 years ago, and maybe a bit more than that. And some girl was talking about, you know, some agreement she had with her mother, who, when she died, if she could, if there's any way possible of leaving some sort of a message, no matter how brief, could she do it? Anyway, the girl reported back that she felt a very peculiar presence one night, just paraphrasing here, but yeah, she got some sort of vision of her mother, and all she saw was a very beautiful looking, happy looking mother, and she was looking at the sun. That's all she did, looked at the sun. So these sort of details and these sort of bits of evidence that you can take as true, you know, and you can use that then, and well, see how it applies to your picture, your ongoing sort of investigations, inquiries. And well, the sun is at the center of everything, but once we understand then that the same thing is at the center of everything, then we can understand why the sun is within, why Jesus, the sun, is pointing to his heart. Our heart is ARISTARCHUS. This is what the liberty flame represents, most especially in its pure and original form in Paris. So much more than that as well, but fundamentally these are the same. Things being represented as within, so without, as above, so below. So anyone who doesn't know, and I stick to it more than ever, is that we, instead of an infinite number of separate material luminaries, we have one source, which you might call it material, but when we look at its projection, its reflection, its expression against the contoured, watery mirror, and it's actually your eye as well. So think about your eye and think about the lens over it. So, and then think about your pupil in the center, how your pupil can enlarge and enlittle, if you will. Yeah, when you're talking about the barrier above, at its highest point, it's very near 60 miles. That's what I'm thinking, the Kármán line. But of course, along the ground, different sense of perspective, we have a massive sort of span, thousands of miles. In oval shape, we have the Oval Office, right? Oval Office. So it's, I look at your eye as well, it's oval shape. When we think about science and what it tells us, well, that we have this in the heliocentric model, we have the sun at the center, and all of everything appears, the Earth travels in an elliptical fashion around the sun on a yearly basis. Well, no, this is not what's happening. The Earth is stationary itself, and all of the luminaries travel in an elliptical fashion or an oval-like fashion, and this is determined by, as I say, the contour and dimension of this reflective screen we have above. It's I don't even want to use electromagnetic, but it's of these source energies emanating in Aristarchus, and yeah, it purposes to hold back the waters beyond. And it is a reflective screen, as I say. So yeah, all of the luminaries, as everything is reversed, return to one central source. So once you get to that point in your own thinking, I'm just saying in my own thinking, right? I'm not telling anybody anything else. Once I get to that point in my own thinking, then I understand that the greater, much greater story sort of emanates, because it involves us then and who we are having this experience. And then that brought me to, like, all the letters we use, our body parts. Why is your head called your head? H-E-A-D. Why is your leg called your leg? Your groin called your groin. Your loins, right? All significant. So when we understand this three-category distinction, the immaterial, the material, the heart center, the bridge between the immaterial and the material, the O at the top representing the immaterial, the L at the bottom representing the material, and then the H representing the heart center. So anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a waffle, but I'm in no hurry. Anyone wants to have a chat as well, just let me know. I don't mind. I'm open to chat to anybody, really, sometimes. Even though that's becoming more and more difficult. Okay, well, Jesus, Irving, how you doing, Irving? Jesus Christ, Israel, decoded Israel, IS, so it's broken into three parts, Israel, R-A-E-L, right? So we have IS, that belongs to the H in the center, the S belongs to the H, right? Ra, R-A, is the upper immaterial, and L then is the lower material, so it's all-encompassing. You are Israel, if you will. But Jesus Christ is real, well, for me anyway, absolutely, but not in that literal sense that we imagine it. We give life to a man who did not exist. There's a different story being told through the offering, and it's the same story as well. Let's look at the words. I mentioned Jesus earlier on. Look at Christ. You see, H-R-I-S, right? Christmas, S-T. Remember I talked about the T representing the immaterial? Another word I realized tonight, I should just break them down more, but Arthur, A-U-R, sorry, A-R-T-H-U-R. A represents, again, the apex, the immaterial. R is R, right? T-H, the theta, U-R. So it's repeating itself again. It's reminding you that you are the TH, right? The theta. You are the immaterial plus the material center, right? So anyway, I don't want to dwell too much on that because, yeah, I'll maybe talk about that a little bit later on, be a little bit clearer. So yeah, whatever you mean there, Irving, that's certainly the way where I stand. I hold it, ancient Israel, as the story passed down to us, didn't exist. Now, it could have existed, I guess, in the sense that, as an imagined, could be crafted, could be. Oh, hang on, that's the light shimmering there. Could materialize in some universe or other, but as best as I can tell, yeah, this is all symbolic language, and it's representative of something more wonderful, I guess, and that is the story of you, the story of each and every one of us, the Adam and Eve within. Okay, so yeah, let me just run through a few names and yeah, say hello. I'm trying to get to stuff, but again, anyone wants a link, let me know. Libra 61 star, Libra 61 star, how you doing? Anytime you hear the word star, in any context whatsoever, refers to the one and only star, ARISTARCHUS. And a very interesting association with Cus earlier. I remember saying Jesus is the son, so Aristarchus is the son, ARISTARCHUS. It turns out that, I mentioned this many times before, Cus, C-H-U-S, is a diminutive, a sort of shortened version of the name Jesus in Spanish. And I was thinking on Mauritius, and again, it's all about the phonics. You could nearly spell shus, C-H-U-S, couldn't you? So Mauritius is Am-I-R-Shus, Am-I-R Jesus, right? Or Am-I-R Christ. That's blasphemous to people. Well, that's your own business. It's certainly not my intention, But if you have externalized things, that's your story. It's your story, and maybe through your belief, right, that you get to materialize these things. I would just ask you, how much do you really know about anything? A story is a story, and like that song Mad World, that's what I was engrossed in when I was a 3 or 4 year old. It was religious iconography, and just fucking know what the hell was going on. But you can be sure it left a massive impression, because it was such a sort of a running theme within my first 3 years at school. You know, so these stories and these pictures are inserted into me, right? But they may be true or they may not be true literally. Where I've come now are true, but not in the literal sense. Every word we hear, we craft and create a picture. So this is what it means by going back to being childlike, being like children with that innocence. So that when you hear a word, you don't look at the finger, you look at the moon, right, that the finger is pointing at. You look at the letters that craft the word, and yeah, you can then categorize them, for me anyway, again, in these 3 categories: the lower, the central, and the upper. The material, the heart bridge center, and the immaterial. Yeah, did I, man? I scared you when I said your name. I doubted that's your name, actually. What's in a name? A name is an anagram of amen, amongst other things. Poles or eggs? Oh, it's very interesting, Irving. What's the distinction between the male and the female, especially in terms of the regenerative areas? This is very interesting. And one, it turns out, well, to me anyway, one is an inversion, a reflection of the other, if you will. So you sort of stretch one inside out and you have the other. So fundamentally, as we're in this divided state, and we all, I guess, long to get back to the womb in that state of coitus, right, or intercourse, then you are sort of fitting the jigsaw piece with the puzzle. And what ends normally with the orgasm, yeah, well, sometimes, if not always, the generation of the greatest miracle known to man, right, which is the human child. So, yeah, back to basics with everything. So, eggs are very interesting as well, particularly associated with the female, of course. And then we have the G and the G. This is what Eve represents. It's just the material, the Mother Earth, right? The heart of the material. Lee Redpath, how you doing, man? Good to see you, Lee. I think I've seen you in a while. I'm just chatting, man, as usual. Just, no, I think maybe in one sense it's better. There's no agenda here. I have no links really to share, and specifically, although I could just go into so many things and talk about them that I know are significant, but for the most part, I suppose you'll have to sort of have come along a bit in terms of your consideration. For instance, I could talk about a link here that I have, and I won't probably get around to tonight, but talking about the location of Sirius, the star Sirius, and why it's so prominent as well. K9, first of all, K9 unit on 9/11. K9 is 11/9, right? The K9 unit had victim number 1, the dog called Sirius, Sirius. And Sirius is the dog star. And when we look at the word Sirius itself, S-I-R-I and U are S. So again, we're in this divided state, and we're constantly being sort of reminded to consider it and look towards, well, reunification. But when we look as to where, again, I could go through with this link, but I haven't done that in ages. This is back in 2011 for me. When we look at that link, we find that when viewed to the Washington Arch, in, where is it? Washington. So to the archway in Washington Park, which is a sort of a replica of the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, nonetheless. You could see the Twin Towers from the fountain, and just as the second tower was falling first, if you switched out the lights and located where the star Sirius was at that particular time, he goes through it in the link, and he goes through all the details via Stellarium and via Google Images. It turns out that yeah, when the first tower fell, the moment it fell, it was directly above the center of it. When viewed, as I said, from that particular location through the Washington Arch, from the fountain, sorry, to the archway in Washington Park. Sorry, that's not Washington Arch, it's the archway in Washington Park. Looking at the Twin Towers, they're framed perfectly in the archway, and that shot has been used in quite a few films actually, but that's all gone into in the thread itself. But isn't it amazing then that half an hour later, when the second, when the first building decided to fall second, even though it was burning longer, it was hit beforehand, even though the whole thing is ridiculous, obviously. Yeah, at the exact moment it fell, there was Sirius after moving that set number of degrees when viewed from that vantage point, and directly over it when it fell. So I talked about the two twin towers of division. And in their place now we have one tower of reunification, where if you look at the design of it, it's upside down triangles, upside down pointing triangles, the A and the V, with the apex pointing up and down is what I mean, with the A and the V in opposition, but yet in harmony, in unity. So this becomes very significant then, or at least you can see how it might be. You know, none of these things are coincidences. And yeah, while I don't tend to make a big deal about them, all these links are available. And as I say, usual, just leave, although I'm not very good at answering comments these days. But if you want to know about it, either catch me again somewhere in chat, or ask me in the comment section here, and I can leave links for that. But as I have the link here, let me just post that. But that's what I'm saying. I could talk for ages about something like this. But I'll probably lose most people. A lot of people still seem to be stuck in the literal. There's that Sirius link. And as I said, when we think then in terms of a bigger story being told here, we can start to make all of these connections. But fundamentally, Sirius S-I-R, or S-I-am, I and U are S. We're in that divided state. And remember, if we think about the circle, right, that's the immaterial us. We outlive the body. We are not the material. So forget about it. Forget about it. We're not the body, right? How many of you need convincing that you're not the body? Well, if you accept that you're not the body, then you'll understand that within the body, you know, there are these distinctions. And yeah, that's the immaterial, the greater you, if you will, that resides in, well, we're told the pineal. But, you know, we didn't get to, in the head area, let's just say that, the brain, I guess. Brain is B-R in A, right? In A again, in the upper, in the apex. And, yes, so back to Sirius. So there's the link in the chat. I could talk about that. So yeah, it's the same story, been told. And, yeah, we need to start applying it to us ourselves, because these are component parts of you. So when we have all of this, and funnily enough, how many times have I mentioned it? The soundtrack to the 102-minute movie we saw on 9/11 was Radiohead's Kid A. This is not just willy-nilly sort of stuff. This is one of the top bands on earth. And yeah, their soundtrack to the 9/11 movie. How could that be when the album came out in 2000? Well, yeah. The movie we saw on television was pre-prepared, right? They did on the day was a magic trick. They took down in a perfectly controlled manner, as far as I'm concerned, all buildings safely. Anyone dying, anyone injured, it's as a matter of an accident or something going wrong. It certainly wasn't planned. And yeah, there's no need to kill anybody when you think about the circumstances and the whole story taken as a narrative, which, you know, you certainly give plenty of clues. Then you can see that it's symbolic in nature. you're told outright that the PNAC, the Project for an New American Century, called for a new Pearl Harbor, and suddenly along came 9/11, and massive changes politically came about. Well, that's a clue for us again. We're encouraged to look back at Pearl Harbor. First of all, pearls, oysters, right? Oysters and pearls. I-star, oyster, right? And it also features in terms of the final riddle that the Queen presents, the White Queen presents to Alice in Wonderland, before Alice receives her crown, right before she progresses up the chessboard, the black and white 64 squared chessboard, with A to H and 1 to 8, right, in terms of rows and columns. But yeah, oyster, it turns out to be the solution, which we thought of ourselves at the time. Someone suggested it in chat. My initial guess was lobster, so given a bit more time, definitely would have got oyster because it featured as well. But Clive James, I think, or Clive Adams give credit to, because I remember that now, give credit to coming up with oyster, and then of course it was oyster, I-star, ARISTARCHUS, but you'd have no way of being able to connect that at the time. But ARISTARCHUS, yeah, I-star right in the middle of ARISTARCHUS is I-star or oyster or pearl. So there we have Pearl Harbor. And it turns out that 88 days after the groundstone was laid in Washington for the Pentagon, we had Pearl Harbor. So there we have that 88 as well. Yeah, and when you question that, well, then you see that it was more fakery, more movie theater, passed off as reality, but with certain clues in there for you to see through it should you look hard enough. And also more specifically then, if the event was staged, then so were 3,000 deaths. So I don't even want to go on about that. And Operations Northwoods and the timely release of that classified document. You know, Northwoods as well, Pine Woods, Hollywoods, Wood, W, and there's the infinity sign in the center, the heart center, D, W at the bottom, D at the top, all encompassing in this material form anyway. So yeah, I could talk about that for ages, but I'm going to leave it there. Let's roll forums. If you want to get the main thread, which is about actually the Diana fakery and more amazing connections to the greater story with that whole affair. When Princess Diana, so just relying on memory, Princess Diana, my whole, anyway, it was a tranny. At least one of them was. And, you know, these people are born for these roles. These are acting roles. They know what they're doing. So who's playing these parts? Well, I don't know. I don't even know sometimes if they're human. I definitely think there's more than human around. And what does it even mean to be human anyway? We have no idea anymore. If we are the immaterial, in one sense, our bodies are avatars. And I'm happy enough myself understanding that my body is not me. And that light is flickering here. One of the bulbs went, so I think too much power is going to the other. But anyway, so yeah, they're born and bred for the role, just like Mark Sargent was born Patricia Steere, crafted character. Yeah, Princess Diana is the same, but as it turns out, at the moment that she died underneath the particular tunnel, I think the name is very significant as well. If you were looking up the Champs-Élysées from that tunnel, which is all connected, and you look through the archway, and this is all gone through in that thread there. So you just join that thread at the prompting at the top of the link, and you'll be in for a fascinating ride. Yeah, if you look through the archway at the top, the Champs-Élysées, right, at the top of the the central promenade in Paris, well, rising at that particular time was indeed, you've guessed it, the star Sirius. So I'm not going to go through that and present the information that's already presented in that link. So if you're more interested in that, you'll be able to find that. But in order to get the full context, I guess you possibly have to put the time in and go through the thread from the start and, you know, see where you end up. But these are more clues along the path. And yeah, that series plays such a significant role Yeah, let's look at the word itself. Fundamentally, what I think is going on with all of the luminaries, every one of them, they're a kaleidoscopic reflection of the same thing, which is the central source energies of Aristarchus emanating from the North Center. Everything else is a kaleidoscopic reflection. That's why I was able to find the Milky Way swathe on the moon. So if you work that through to its completion, just accept it for a minute, if you will. And what are the implications of that? That the whole of the night sky is to be found on the moon. Right. Now it brings us back to what the moon may be as well. When we understand it's a reflection, a kaleidoscopic reflection of solidity, well, then we can equate the sun and the moon in more direct terms. When we understand it's mirrors everywhere, maybe one is a reflection of the other, then look for the source of the sun. This is where we get Polaris, this old central stars. This is your Christmas tree. Remember you at Christmas time, which is coming up shortly. Christmas, Xmas, XMS. Yeah, when we reconnect a decapitated tree, I'm talking about in terms of, when I say decapitated tree, I'm talking about the main body of the tree being in the root system, right? The decapitated tree, we connected onto the X and we artificially light it up, but we always have a massive star, right? A central guiding star at the top. That is the North Star, or more particularly Polaris. Polaris Starcus. So mention this, just as you hold your torch to the wall, right? You have a small circle of light concentrated, and it is roughly the same size as the border of the torch head. As you move away from that wall in a darkened room, that reflection will enlarge and increase in size. So we can think in those terms when we're looking at the moon and we're looking at this kaleidoscopic reflection of the same thing. So that's fundamentally where I'm at anyway, and this is what I'm seeing, that there are clues for everywhere pointing to the same thing. The most important law and rule, I guess, rule of thumb in trying to work any of this out is whatever is presented to us as truth, invert it and see where that takes you. And then on you go. If it's fruitful, you'll soon know, and if it isn't, well, then you'll have failed to have been applying it to yourself and have categorized it in the knowable. Too many people are saying too many things are unknowable. It's not true. It's not true. That would defeat the whole purpose of all of this, I think. But there are certainly many, many clues there for us to follow, many crumbs to pick up. But if we take ourselves out of the equation, then you won't piece it together. So yeah, sorry, man. Sorry, just keep going on like that. So I could pick out about 100 things to talk about at that level. I could just talk about that for ages as well, because it's so enlightening, that whole thread. And it's by I'm taking anyone's word for anything. Just perusing certain things with an interest, a deeper interest than just the superficial, you know. Get caught up in the Judy Woods of and like she's probably still going strong, but you can get caught up in the literal and you get nowhere. It's the same with the Bible literalists. You get caught up in the Bible, you get nowhere because you've externalized it. But when we can see through, yeah, then yeah. Thanks, Irving. Dodo, Fayad, Princess Di. Exactly. Yeah, definitely commented on that before. Dodo's everywhere. And new significance to the dodo again, Irving. Yeah, when I write Je suis dodo, I am dodo, man. We are dodo. My brother said it a few weeks ago. Jesus is dodo. And I thought about it. And that's exactly what Jesus is. We're all dodo. Remember, dodo has two significances, like everything else, the external and the internal. It's just the wondrous nature of this whole story here, that nothing can be sort of separated because everything is the same sort of central source to everything. We talked about God earlier on, so think of the word now, G, in relation to the D. So the G falls into the L category, the material category. The D falls into the immaterial, and then the O is the ring to bind it all. The O, the 8 is twisted. And this is where the word God itself comes up, but I think we should be very careful when we use it. But again, all of these concepts are named, so named specifically. They are concepts, and it's via, again, the bricks and the cement that are the letters that we can, get a coherence where maybe before there wasn't any. And that's by understanding the nature of us, the immaterial aspect to us versus the material, the thought versus the deed, right? Jennifer Winterbird, how you doing, Jennifer? I hope you're well, Jennifer. And regards to Jamie, greetings to Jamie. We haven't seen him on in a while. Definitely wait for him to come back on, and hopefully he will have much to say. Jamie has to remember no one is pushing him, no one should push him to follow any particular position. The one thing I would tell him that is he is in a position where any sort of backtracking, if you will, if you want to use that term, or any sort of doubts expressed will be picked up on. So he'll be used as sort of political weight, if you will, by the ballers, or the returning antagonists. And then he'll be put up in a pedestal, and yeah, it will all be for the purposes of division, you know what I mean? When you go back and shake yourself, when you come back to your senses, these ball antagonists and will put you up in a pedestal, So because Jamie has an audience and because he's been in this, I suppose it would do well to consider it to the extent it needs to be considered, everything. And then, come out with an honest and an open point of view. For me, my view is well clear. I became a flat earther after due consideration. I'm probably considered first in 2011, definitely 2012. I think probably came down firmly on flat earth side 2013 with due consideration. The more you consider it, the more it makes absolute sense. But where I am now, I realize that that's just, it's minor in one sense. It's minor. There's so much beyond that, right? Nothing is separate. That's the whole point. Everything is interconnected. And many times, if I said it, if we haven't moved in one sense beyond flat earth, we haven't progressed because it was handed to us on a plate. I do remember pointing out to Jamie that just in terms of personal sort of endeavor, you have to have some progress to show for things. Otherwise, it would be a pointless exercise, right? Having spent so much time and effort into trying to understand and only finding yourself in a much more dark and confused place than you even began with. So it can be daunting, and everything in its time with an honest heart. I think all answers will come our way, or can do anyway. Okay, a nice one, Jennifer. So, welcome, and I'll continue talking here. Greg T says, vegan guy was going on about his cracked teeth. I said it was a common vegan symptom, well documented because of lack of animal fats. He got triggered and banned me. Fair enough, Greg T. I'm probably sure that maybe some of your other views as well might be contrary, and that might have something to do with it. But if Vegan Goy is a genuine vegan, and he is going through the motions, well, let him worry about that, I would say. Remember, you're on his channel, so he's a free right to say and do anything. And me, myself, I certainly know about teeth. Us Irish, in general, have terrible teeth. Myself, I don't have great teeth at all. And vegan or otherwise, I'm a vegetarian now, so I haven't eaten meat in ages. But that's for the individual to concern themselves with. You can comment all you like, but such comments like that will probably get you banned. Why not? I mean, who are you after all? So he's free to do what he wants. But like with anything else, anything you decide to do, look into it, think about it. Don't follow in any pre-fashioned pathways. Apply it to your own thinking, apply it to your own life, if you will. I mean, it's well known that I drink urine. haven't had it in a few days actually, but I'm probably getting back to it tomorrow morning. But I definitely notice my skin. I don't, doesn't matter how I look here to anybody. I'm just looking at myself, and for the most cases, I'm feeling my skin. My skin is definitely softer, and general health is excellent as well. You know, but I know how many people would be squeamish at that. It doesn't bother me at this stage. It really doesn't. And generally, what I do in terms of if it's bowler antagonists, I generally make a joke of it and ask them, well, what have you put into your mouth recently? And add some sort of smart comment, like, say, by the way, say hello to your boyfriend from me. You know, but in general, to someone who is genuinely repulsed by it, well, think about what you put into your mouth, including, you know, any animal products, if you are a meat eater. And if you're not a meat eater, like myself, but I still do use animal products, talking about milk, eggs, deal with it, you know, deal with it. What do we need is the ultimate question. But when it comes to just the physiological process, you're putting in certain things into your body that I guess maybe if you knew the full extent of your body's functionality in an ideal sense or in a proper sense, you wouldn't dream of doing putting inserting these ingredients, if you will, to keep your body functioning into such a tender and a pure system. That's the way I think about it. So again, like anything else, yeah, do your own thinking. And don't write off anything. I often say about urine is the first thing we're thought to be disgusted by as children. We're told to be disgusted by as children. You know, interesting thought and taught. I sorry, I have trouble with THs. We always have, like, you know, for some reason, I think maybe that's significant. Most of the time, it's a sort of a little tenth, hundredth of a second thing that you know there's a TH word coming up, and you sort of accommodate for it. But yes, in general, as Irish have problems with their THs, I think I sort of can understand the small bit why now. But yeah, first thing we're told to be disgusted by, yeah, again, THOTH and TAUGHT. So there's the G inserted right into the thought. Right. So yeah, first thing we're told to be disgusted by as children, urine. That leaves a lasting impression then. And I wouldn't mind, but you know, the worst thing I can say at this stage, you learn to, it's not about enjoying it as such. It's like sort of, you can imagine cod liver oil or something. I actually opened up one of the hangouts with cod liver oil, the song. But that's 100 times more daunting. My beautiful Steve, right? He could never swallow pills. You know those capsules that cod liver oil pills came in? So I'd be giving him them, like, and say, come on, Steve, knock it back now. And look, unlike us, you know, we had to fucking taste it. All you have to do is swallow the little capsules. They're a tiny thing as well. So he'd give it a go anyway. Every time he'd give it a go, and he could, you know, he could give it that. I said, come on, Steve, just swallow it back. But no matter what it was, in the end, he was like begging for the oil itself. Well, okay, but if you want to just get the bottle of oil, pour it on a spoon, there you go, take it. No problem to him. So yeah, it's all about what we're used to. And yeah, if we can go back to those earliest of times and start questioning all those things that are ingrained in us to such a deep, strict sense, this is where the parents, family, friends, social conformity comes into things as well to sort of sway and shape us. So yeah, we can reconsider everything. And look, I don't give a fuck at this stage. It's down to the individual. Although I can't say that now because look, I met a girl in the park. I do give a fuck. I really do give a fuck. But when it comes to trying to convince anybody, not one-to-one, for instance, I'm not going to do that. With Greg T here, he you know, not saying anything, Greg. I don't really know you too well, but yeah, that comment shouldn't have got you banned. I wouldn't have thought that. This hurt no wrenches and flatters for me. So as long as you're reasonable, that comment seems okay, and it's just a reminder. But still, in all, it's sort of stepping over the mark. You're assuming that you know better than him himself. Whereas even if he doesn't know better, he might be necessarily offended by that comment anyway. But he's entitled to that. He's a different individual than you are. You know nothing about him. So you could be accused of taking liberties in one sense. But if you're genuine, I think that will come across as well. So yeah, I'm not speaking to anybody here. Who am I trying to convince of anything? But in real life, I was out walking the Brandy, my brother's, Andrew, his dog, the other day, and we were just in the local park. It was a lovely sort of setting. Brandy loves it, and like leaves everywhere. But as we were passing this young girl, there was like a dog sprawled out. And well, the dog was okay, but she saw Brandy coming. You've seen Brandy here before. So he's built like a brick shithouse, you know. So if you didn't know what was going on, you'd be cacking yourself. But she picked up her own dog and just was saying, "Is he all right?" So I gave her, yeah, he's grand, love. Don't worry about that. He'll be more playful than anything. But anyway, I got talking to her for a few minutes, and it turns out she is, after a bit, like not too long as well, but she has MS. She's tried everything. She's been on 1,500 euros injections every week. It's taken her till on a Wednesday, saying it's taken her till Friday to sort of recover and be able to do anything again after it. She has to pay for it out of her own money. She has to work at the same time. You know, all of this sort of stuff. And she did look very gaunt, and she didn't look very healthy at all. So I said, what I would say to anybody, if you've given up on everything, well, have you considered urine? Have you heard anything about urine therapy? In other words, drinking your own urine to sort of tackle some sort of inner woes? And she hadn't, but she was very interested. I mean, she's been through the pain. Remember, if you've been through the pain, I've been through pain in my own life, personal pain, like bad accident. So I know what it's like to, I guess, have to deal with constant pain. So if someone was offering me in the heights of some of the pains that I've been, and we can all relate to this in their own way. I'm not saying anything like pain wasn't too bad. The mental pains are the worst, aren't they? I've had those as well, but in terms of physical pain, if someone said to me, if you drink a glass of urine there on a regular basis, and that'll sort you out, I'd go, fuck it, give it to me. Give it to me. Give a shit. Who's urine? Horse urine, and give a shit. Skunk urine, off you go. I'll hold my nose, man. I've seen Fear Factor. I've seen I'm Celebrity, get me out of here. Celebrity, star, I'm a star, get me out of here. Yeah. Are you a star? Are you ARISTARCHUS? ARISTARCHUS. Main character in Game of Thrones, never seen it myself. Never seen it myself. One of the main characters, and a particular character, we're told, who sticks out. You know, she has a certain characteristic, as it's written, that she's the only, throughout the series of novels, only, how do they put it? Point of view character. Let me just read it here. I have the link. It says, yeah, she's a prominent point of view character in the novels and is the only viewpoint character to appear in every published book of the series. See, I don't know really what that means. I can see the significance enough, but without a context, Arya Stark, ARYASTARK. Without a context, that would mean anything to most people. Even with a context, ARISTARCHUS, Arya Stark, Arya Stark, are you Stark, or are we Stark? Are I Stark us? Yeah. Now, without a context, it would mean anything, but with a context, it would still be difficult to connect things. But with the understanding, from my point of view, that ARISTARCHUS is the source. Well, it's not just the external. ARISTARCHUS continues all into the very heart of our matters. And one thing I'm realizing now, when you do look at ARISTARCHUS, we see it only in its reflected form from the moon. So, this is the only place we can go to get all our clues. This is why Stanley Kubrick, with Arthur C. Clarke, right, with the book being written in conjunction with the movie, even though we're told via the narrative that Kubrick still withheld some of the plot twists, or some of the storyboard from Arthur C. Clarke when they were co-writing the book. But yeah, he did name in the book the name of the ape who found the monolith in a pit or a crater. Funny that ARISTARCHUS is found within a pit on the moon. But he did name the ape who found the monolith, which allowed for the evolution or the advancement of the kind, Moon Watcher. So very significant indeed. All clues for us, but it turns out ARISTARCHUS is an anagram of Christ's aura, first of all. That's the most significant one. Aura, A-U-R-A, one distance between the Earth and the Sun is called an astronomical unit, A-U. A-U is also the two letters chosen to represent gold. So you are A, right? You are the immaterial, the atom. Simple as that. We outlive the bodies. So, yeah. ARISTARCHUS is an anagram of C. Arthur, the letter C. C. Arthur, as is. Arthur, A-U-T-H-U-R. So you are the theta, you are the TH, which is think about the symbol for the theta, it's a circle and the diameter, the 0 and the 1, the immaterial and the material. right? So, oh well, yeah. Don't even get me started on 2001. I have lots of different a few different screenshots. Anyway, HAL, HAL, H in the center, A at the top, L at the bottom. HAL is like an eye, isn't it? An iris. Yeah. But I've quite a few screenshots where Aristarchus is inlaid. It's only when you know what you're looking for as well that you can see it. And that certainly is designed, as so many other clues are. It's all around the same thing, but without the specific context. It's where flat Earth comes into it as well. You know, we have to have gotten to this point to even consider any of this stuff. As I said, when I was into science and into reading about the universe, and not so much in great detail, because beyond a certain point I lost track, tried to follow it, and I got far enough. And I think if I was forced into following it as far as I could have probably processed it and come to understand it in a deeper way. But I did realize that after a certain point that, listen, I'm fucking like Stephen Hawking's Brief History of Time. Read it a few times, and each time I sort of reread it, got to the next chapter and processed, you know, the new information and sort of wrapped my brain around it somewhat. But then there was always the next step that you go, oh, for fuck's sake. You know, you just completely lose track of it. But yeah, to that degree, I was interested in science. And, you know, with their gospel, I'm just going to swallow it. And I did swallow it. We're living in a material world. I'm living in a material world. Excellent. Excellent. Remember I was saying about G, girl? I'm living in a material world, and I am a material girl. Yes, you know I'm living in a material world, and I am a material girl. Girl, what's the center? Well, what's the center of a woman's orgasm? Or G-spot, right? Mother Earth. Mother, this is what Eve represents, the heart of the material. Adam then represents the heart of the immaterial. And again, within us all, we're divided from the material, we're divided from the immaterial into the material, and then within the material, we're divided male from female. We're mirrored down the center. So everything, though, is intimately connected. You know, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. It's like a Rubik's Cube in one sense, even though it's mixed up, you know, with all the stickers in their proper form, that by certain process, you will be able to achieve harmony, I guess. I remember when I was younger, don't know what it was. To admit it, I probably stole it. I probably stole a Rubik's Cube from a shop. Maybe I didn't know. I might have paid for it, but I probably didn't look at the book of instructions. Definitely wasn't, didn't steal too much, but definitely did steal at times back when I was younger. But regarding the Rubik's Cube, yeah, I couldn't do it. Didn't even think there was a solution offered with the purchase. Maybe just threw it away with the packaging, and I got so frustrated with it. Just ended up peeling off all the stickers and putting them all back on in the right order. That was it then. So, but yeah, that's just the memory that came to me. That wasn't very satisfying as well. But yeah, that's the way it is with the male and the female. You know, the pieces are jumbled up, but when you get them everything in the right orientation, right order, the right alignment, then everything comes together. So yeah, Arya Stark, that's amazing. Arya Stark, Tony Stark, Flat Earth, FE, Iron Man. If I remember rightly, I don't think I saw the movie. If I did, I don't remember it too well, but maybe it was Iron Man 3. Osama bin Laden plays a prominent role, and it's very much hinted about 9/11 media and victim fakery in it, I believe. But yeah, Iron Man, FE Core, FE Apple Core. Yeah, these people know. These people, even with the FE Core logo, we have FECO. E is the center, right? So F would be an upward tendency, because if we think of the letter E, moving the limb from the bottom to the top, the material to the immaterial, that gives F a certain power. And there we have, of course, our father and mother, F-A-T-H-E-R. So ER is U-R-E, right? But you decided to move that E into the upper position, if you will, and you get the F-F-A-T-H-E-R, and mother then M-O-T-H-E-R. It's Mother Earth, Father Sky. So one represents as the embodiment of the literal, and one of the, or sorry, the literal, the material, and one the opposite, the embodiment of the immaterial, Adam and Eve. And so it is, Adam and Eve is within you, the division within. So anyway, yeah. And maybe another song is due. I only ever get to say hello to a few people, right? And then I just go off on a mad tangent. Yeah, how you doing, Greg T? Hope you're well. I hope you're genuine. If you're not, you're maybe in the wrong place. But anyone wants a wrench, I guess people who've been here as well, I'm not just going to go to anybody. Let me know. Anyone wants to chat as well, let me know. I'll still be around for maybe another hour. Fucking nothing done. It's very late again. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Tominoid, I made a little Kubrick video about some stuff in Full Metal Jacket. One Eye Jack's channel has a lot of Kubrick connections, but it's all over the place. Yeah, One Eye Jack's, right. So we think about the Jack in terms of the playing cards. We have the Jack, the picture cards, the Jack, the Queen, and the King. Now we have the Ace, right, which is both 1 and 11. So this is exemplifying its sort of hierarchy in a sense. It can be all or nothing. It can be the least powerful or the most powerful, if you will. But the Jack, yeah, the Jack. If we associate with the three centers, yeah, the center of the material, which is the L or the G, the heart center, which is the H, and the immaterial center, which is the O, the upper, right, the head. The Jack would represent the L. So when we think of characters like Mike L. Jackson, all the angels as well, angel. Remember, these are all, if this is all storytelling, these are all storytelling associated with the physical. So if we interpret them physically and literally, then in a sense, we give life. If L, remember, if L, we give life to these creations. And as I mentioned before, that can be a very silly thing to do. That's what we've done for years regarding this spinning ball heliocentric model, the heliocentric, the H-heliocentric, L-I-O. I-O is the theta, right? So that's what we gave for years. That's where we clumsily, carelessly wielded the sword, the S word, the is, right? So, yeah, that's what the Jack represents, Jack L. Queen represents the O, right? And the King then represents the H center. These are the categories that they're put in. I had to develop it and put it down in a little simple arrangement. I first of all have to divide the letters into these categories, which I know they go into. Then explain a bit more about the King and the Queen. If you think about a K, with a backwards K, can anyone tell me what you get? Very famous symbol. A K aligned with a backwards K. In small letters, if you will. What you get. So that's very significant in itself. But yeah, all of these different offerings have this fundamental association. And well, we're much more than kings and queens, that's for certain. These are labels, and these are constructions associated with the physical. We're much more than that. This is our venture into the physical, into the material, and we are of greater source. You know, we venture into the story. We are the one player. We are Alice. So yeah. We can say that this is our dominion. So in our own right, as we use the terms lightly, we are kings and queens on the land. This is what it means to be man. right? But when we're tricked out of our skin, well, that's a different story then. And maybe the ultimate purpose is to come to this realization where there are, in fact, many clues left for us everywhere. Yeah, we can say this then in that sense. I'm king of Era on the basis of that we're all kings and queens born onto the land. And I recognize each and every one of my fellow men, women, and children as being exactly the same. There's no distinction between any of us. So that's up to you, to yourself, to come to that realization and declare it to yourself, or, you know, say what you have to say about it. That's just what I've done, and I don't take anything back for certain. If I did have anything to take back, I would certainly be saying it. So anyway, let me get on with Greg T says, I came on your channel by accident. I thought I clicked Poncho's channel. All right, well, Poncho was another one with the Gleason's Gleason's map up, pretty quick smart. And I believe he's back in on good terms with Patricia Steer, Mark Sargent, and all these people now. So that leads me to think Poncho being a magician, doing what he does, more theatre. Wouldn't surprise me. Used to go on Poncho regularly and had lots of good chats on Poncho Beats. So I'll sort of leave that behind and, well, wish my fellow man the best. So maybe you want to go back there, Greg. That's your own business. If you haven't heard anything I'm talking about now before, well, it seem all very strange to you, I'm guessing, but I can't help that. Let me play another song or two in a second now, and yeah, just keep going through chat. Oh yeah, so that was about Full Metal Jacket, and right in the title itself we have Jack, right? And one-eyed Jacks. This is your penis, right? Your penis, vagina are the same thing fundamentally. The eye of your penis. You have an eye above and an eye below. You have actually 4 eyes. Your pineal, Pinocchio translates as pine eye. This is Aristarchus. This is at the heart of Aristarchus. You can see via its reflected form. You can see the egg and the sperm in the center and the egg. And we understand that we are dealing with a reflection. Kaleidoscopic, if you will, fractal reflection, if you will, again. Then we can narrow everything down to, I say the central peak in Aristarchus, which you can call it Mount Meru, if you will, but it's much more than that. It's not something external, although it is. It's external and internal. It gets all the way to the heart of our matters. It's the source of everything. And all I can say is, within this limited state, we are restricted in terms of how far we can cast our mind, how much we can understand. Beyond a certain point, you have to sort of let go. But that Aristarchus is the heart of things. Well, yeah, it is the sperm. It is the eye of the penis. It is the vagina. It is everything. And you can check it out yourself. That's the beauty of it. Consider all of this stuff. Due consideration, consider it all with due consideration, if you so choose. If you don't, well, that's fine as well. Nothing to do with me. So, I won't talk about women in terms of what I think the story is, because, of course, in the Genesis 2, Adam was created first, right, out of the clay, and Eve was pulled from a rib of Adam. So there is almost a hierarchy suggested there, isn't it? But if you're still about describing God as a he, then you don't understand God, or you don't understand more fundamentally what the term means. God is indivisible. So you cannot divide God into sex, right? So by using the word he, which is H-E, definite article, the, which is T-H-E, T belongs in the D category or the O category. So yeah, if you're doing that, well, then you're not sort of thinking it through, I suppose. Okay, Greg. Sorry, I was just reading there. I'm glad to see you're not a spinning ball earther anyway. So don't have much time for those type of debates anymore, unless there's someone who comes across as genuine. And then I could entertain them. First of all, make sure that they were honest inquirers, or I tried to ascertain whether they were honest inquirers by just asking them outright. Were they? And if they were, then a few basic questions would tell me where they're at. We know there's controversy in the area. If you're an honest inquirer, you'll ask the basic questions, and you will have asked and answered the basic questions. So any questions that I would ask you, in terms of all of it, in terms of its basic simplicity, you would certainly be able to handle. And well, that's where I know that they will collapse. First of all, in terms of Earth's movement, Earth beneath their feet. What piece of evidence? What proof have they satisfied themselves against all their better senses throughout a lifelong of experience that the Earth beneath their feet is moving? So, depending on their answer, then that will depend just how well I can gauge or judge where these people are coming from and whether they're genuine or not. Another great one is, and it's obnoxious when you think about it, because we know the truth. All ballers must hold it down at the beach, waiting for sunrise. And when that sun starts to rise at eye level over the ocean, it is rising from a wall of water, from behind a wall of water, 3 miles into the distance. Obnoxious, absolutely obnoxious. And if they tell you that they don't hold it, that's to be the case, well, then get them to explain what do they hold to be the case when we're looking at the sunrise. And they'll soon get flummoxed and realize, well, hang on, that's what I have to hold to be the case because the curvature is so strictly defined of the particular spinning ball I live on. So yeah, flummoxed. And many other arguments after that then. I mean, it's all settled, long since settled, but as I said, yeah, there's a much more significant story. It's like stage one, I suppose, and it's not too significant. I would suggest you don't really get hung up in that. Just understand that, yeah, everything is much more up close and personal, and you know, take it from there. Take it from there. Know what isn't so, and don't sort of be dogmatic about finding out what is so before you will entertain other things. Again, everything in its own time will come together, and yeah, it'll be you yourself who is piecing it together, and no one will be in a position to tell you whether you're right or wrong, depending on your due consideration. Simple as that. This is about yourself. We're not out to convince anybody else. We're really not, especially at this stage. Yeah, especially at this stage where, you know, we were vocal about, I certainly was vocal about many things in the past. Chemtrail has been one of them, but all of the fear porn and everything got soaked up in all of it. And why wouldn't you sort of be passionate about expressing some of these dastardly wrongs on all of us? But yeah, when we start thinking in different terms, in greater terms, we can take a sort of step back from always having to have the answer, and even understanding when we do have some sort of an answer, that's prone to change as well. And yeah, understanding our limitations before bombarding somebody else, be they loved one or otherwise, with anything we think we know for certain. You actually met Arthur C. Clarke in 1998. All right. Only you and someone else knew who he was. Yeah, a very interesting character. Another crafted character as well. But as you mentioned, yeah, he was the originator of satellites, yeah, in terms of how we understand satellites to be in theory. And yeah, after he came up with the short story, maybe 10, 20 years later, we went from science fiction to science fact. Big pusher of satellites was JFK, another actor put in place. So all actors, remember, it's the same story being told. All of these main characters are for certain playing their part knowingly. So we look behind the story. Arthur C. Clarke, JFK pushing satellites. JFK is equated to Arthur, King Arthur type figure. They had that whole Camelot entourage. And when JFK died, it was sort of named The Killing of the King. Now, in Irish, Kennedy was from Irish, and Kennedy's an Irish name. Well, so we're told anyway. It's Ceann Éide. Ceann Éide translates as a head wound. So how peculiar that Kennedy was said to have passed on via a head wound. From who? You don't know. Lee Harvey Oswald, Jackie Kennedy, no fucker. And that's exactly it. No fucker. Well, that's another interesting. See, I would have completely forgot about that. Lee Harvey Oswald was the patsy, we're told. Lee Harvey Oswald, LHO. Well, isn't that funny? There we have the OHL, or the LHO in reverse order, right? The L takes the prominent position, the H is centered, the O at the end. But yeah, we work our way through those conspiracies, and we soon get into much deeper territory indeed. But there before us, all along, was this ability ingrained within the narrative to work out that you're not dealing with something literal here. You're dealing with a different story being told via the literal characters. So I've often pointed out JFK, which is in terms of the standard equation between letters and numbers. J is the 10th letter, F is the 6th, and K is the 11th. So as everything is reversed, when you invert it and mirror it, you get 11901, which turns out to be September 11th, 2001, as we will read it here in Ireland, where JFK was from, supposedly from in the right order. The date first, then the month, and then the year. So all coincidence? Sure, sure. Arthur. King Arthur is a Christ-like representation, and Arthur, A-R-T-H-U-R, right? So A-T-H. Yep. Again, we're not the body, we're not the L, we're not the material. There's more to us. Get it into your brain, the center of your mind. M-I-N-D, mind. I talked earlier on about, not earlier on, at another point, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. Well, we look at the letter or the word wind, W-N-D. Well, that's from top to bottom, that's all inclusive, right? So the answer is within you, because you encompass the top, from the top to the bottom, and you're everything in between. That is the material, transitioning to the immaterial, all in one. Anyway, yeah. Well, 444, the truth. How you doing? Good to see you. If this is all a lie, picture what truth is. Well, what is truth? There we have T-R-U-T-H, right? R is, to be, I am, you are, you is you, I is I, TH. So there we have the T, the upward tendency, the immaterial, and then we have the TH, which is associated with the heart center, and, you know, taking the two together, foregoing, if you will, the lower leanings, which you can't quite really do as well, because the H, again, is the bridge between the material and the immaterial. But I know that you're a religious individual, and you know, we've always got on reasonably well, even though I'm quite sure you know that I've had lots of trouble with Paula and MG Pillbox and all that sort of stuff, but not because I'm intentionally trying to denigrate anybody. It's just we have to reconsider everything. Everything has to be on the table in terms of things that we can come to change our mind about. And where I'm at now, again, when we externalize things, when we use that sword clumsily, well, that's the biggest sin, because we give life then to something that has no reality. And we want to be very careful when we do that. That's all I would say. And by externalizing everything, this is exactly what's happening. So it's the next trap, maybe one of the very last traps that we set for ourselves. I recognize as a creator, and I love my fellow man. So, you know, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Truth and nothing but truth. That's what I say. And while within the word itself, truth, you find a lot of truth. As within many other words presented to us, especially the more prominent ones, and especially the more basic ones, actually. Okay. Okay, I don't want to go back. Sorry if I missed anybody. In terms of saying hello. Yeah, not intentional and just the usual way as well. Sort of been going into chat, but rainbow. Okay, Lee, like a rainbow in Ra. Bow is B-O-W, but if you think about it phonically, how it would sound, it's B-O-H as well. B-O-H. Bow. I pointed out before, if we think about the Bible story, the first rainbow came into existence after the Great Flood. That makes sense to me in terms of the giant trees being decapitated. So like we have at Christmas time, if you imagine a crystalline tree being connected to the power source and all of that energy being distributed throughout the limbs in a wondrous fashion, well, decapitate that tree, have the same energy coming up through it. It'll be pretty much like a laser light, wouldn't it? Pretty much like a laser, pretty much like we see the sun, actually. And as I've said as well, I mean, if you want to see the sun in its true form, go above the atmosphere. So we were free to do that with many high altitude balloon footages, and you can see that it's far from circular. And when you look closely at it, it is indeed a crater, looking into a crater. And well, that crater has been identified as the only crater there is, creator, which is ARISTARCHUS. So whatever divine energies, if that's the word you want to use, that are being transmitted through this, it's outside of sort of our ability to sort of take in properly, but we can make great strides in understanding this. I don't think there's anything bad ultimately. Libra 61 star. It's all just variations, you know, it's all just options, it's all just tendencies. We're all ultimately the same, and no matter how bad you are, there's always a third good in you. This is where the 66 2/3, 1/3 comes into it. If we think about the M versus the W and how it's constructed, with the W, we have two arrows pointing downwards and one pointing upwards, just in the construction of the letter. Whereas with the M, it's the opposite way. It's two pointing upwards and one pointing downwards. That's why the W rests in the L category for, in inverted commas, the lower collection. The M is in the center because it's pointing to an upper tendency. So yeah, it's not anything particularly bad. But as I said, if we get completely immersed in materialism and we hold that that's all there is, we move that H in the center down to the L, and we get hell and the heliocentric model, where all of the universe, you know, everything that we see beyond the ground here, is all composed of a material core, a material center. So this is what it represents. It's as simple as that. When we understand that no, these luminaries are immaterial, then, you know, we can understand why it's called the heliocentric model. Who's the first to come up with the heliocentric model? You guessed it, or maybe you didn't. Aristarchus of Samos, right? He's the first, we're told, that put the sun at the center and spherical Earth and planetary bodies revolving around that sun center. Why don't you hear about Aristarchus of Samos' flat earthers? Copernicus is pushed into your face. This is all established 500 years. Why don't they go back an extra 1,500 years when they talk about this guy, Aristarchus of Samos, sorted it all out back then? No, they can't do that, you see, because it's a clue. And if you're playing holding gates and keeping hurdles, then you can't go there, you know. And it's by the silence, as I say, that we can understand the significance, because there's absolutely no reason why, especially doing all of this as long as I've been doing it, that shouldn't have been fucking force-fed down my throat on numerous occasions. But no, not the case. So let me just, I was going to read this at the start and then whip into Gentle Annie. But because he does this, Tommy Makem does it when he, before he starts singing Gentle Annie. But it's also a song in its own right. And maybe I'll say it and sing it, actually, and I'll do another song as well. So it's called On Raglan Road. So let me just read a poem for you. But I'm glad I didn't include it now, because it's of a different time, and it's by an Irish poet called Patrick Kavanagh. So even though there's great value in the poem itself, it's not equating like for me anyway, in terms of playing or saying it before Gentle Annie. So I might say it, I might try to recite it and sing it afterwards and just see how that goes. I don't have the chords up, but I can bluff them, I think. It's called Raglan Road. Excuse me. On Raglan Road, on an autumn day, I saw her first and knew that her dark hair would weave a snare that I might one day rue. I saw the danger, yet I walked along the enchanted way, and I said, let grief be a falling leaf at the dawning of the day. On Grafton Street, in November, we tripped lightly along the ledge of a deep ravine where can be seen the worst of passions pledged. Queen of Hearts still baking tarts and I not making hay. Well, I love too much, by such and such is happiness thrown away. I gave her the gifts of the mind, I gave her the secret sign that's known to all the artists who have known true gods of sound and time. With word and tint, I did not stint, I gave her reams of poems to say, with her own dark hair and her own name there, like the clouds over fields of May. On a quiet street where old ghosts meet, I see her walking now, away from me so hurriedly, my reason must allow. For I have wooed, not as I should, a creature made of clay. When the angel woos the clay, he'll lose his wings at the dawn of the day. Okay. I'm going to get that I'm going to get that a blast. Definitely haven't played this in years, but there's a little bit of a cadence problem towards the end, but hopefully I'll get away with it. On Raglan Road, on an autumn's day, I saw her first and knew that her dark hair would weave a snare that I might one day rue. I saw the danger, yet I walked along the enchanted way. And I said, let grief be a falling leaf at the dawning of the day. On Grafton Street in November, we tripped lightly along the ledge of a deep ravine where can be seen the worst of passions pledged. The Queen of Hearts still making tarts, and I not making hay. But I love too much, and by such and such is happiness thrown away. I gave her gifts of the mind, I I gave her the secret sign that's known to all the artists who have known true gods of sound and time. With word and tint, I did not stint. I gave her reams of poems to say, with her own dark hair and her own name there, like the clouds over fields of May. On a quiet street where all ghosts meet, I see her walking out, away from me so hurriedly. My reason must allow, for I have wooed not as I should, a creature made of clay. And the angel moves the clay, he'll lose his wings at the dawning of day. The angel moves the clay, he'll lose his wings at the dawn of day. Shit, I haven't sang that in ages. A little bit of a sort of cadence problem in the center there. Patrick Kavanagh, I think he died maybe in the 60s, something like that. So one of Ireland's most famous poets. And, well, I gave her the secret sign. I gave her the gifts of the mind. I gave her the secret sign that's known to all the artists who have known true gods of sound and time. Very interesting. What does he mean by that? Everything is frequency and vibration. The material is a manifestation of frequency and vibration. When we see words like time, as I pointed out many times, me, it is an anagram. Time magazine, one of the most famous magazines, the prominent magazines. We've all seen the cover of it. There it is telling you, me, it. So what might it be? I-T, right? I is another one that's associated with the H center. I-H, H-I, hi, how you doing? But time is me, it, yeah. And now we can look at terms like whole E, H-O-L, remember? H-O-L, O-H-L, E, right? Spear it. Bring the three together as the human into the heart center. You are it, right? And again, there's and clay. And where will that take us? Well, heaven knows. Heaven knows. You don't want to go to hell. You don't want to be trapped in the material forever, do you? All right, let me give this one a try. We were talking about pearls earlier on. So I said I'd give this a... Hope this isn't freezing up now. Jesus. Look how late it is, man. Talking about nothing, but... Could be construed that way. Conscrewed. But not really. Just taking this time loading up here, and I hope it's not affecting the Hangout itself, so I just rather than touch it, give it a second. we go. Come on. It's reloaded here, actually. Here we go, yeah. Uh-oh. Here we go, yeah. So, okay, I think it's just, I think I'll just get rid of that tab altogether and open a new one. Tabs, actually. Bear with me now. Okay, hopefully it's shooting. It's still kind of still buffering here. So still 6 watching, Lee Redpath. Oh well, that suits me. How about you? I don't worry about these things anymore. That's what I ever did anyway, to be honest. Not what it's about. Not what it's about at all. Okay, I think we're having a little bit of success here. Hang on. I think we're back in business now. Oh, for goodness sake. The heck? Pressing around. Okay, let me try that. Sorry about that. It's just about the lyrics, getting the lyrics on the screen. Well, we were talking about pearls earlier on, and pearls come from oysters, I-star. I love watching. I was watching the snooker, and there in the corner, the make of the snooker table is star snooker table. Well, actually, not particularly that one, the more recent one. But yeah, it's before you everywhere. But this is called The Days of Pearly Spencer. Actually, I'll get the David McWilliams. Okay, so that's the singer, and one of his one-hit wonders from the 80s. Sometimes it's always sort of stuck with me, and it's a great song. But now that I can reprocess it, yeah. That means something different again, as everyone, as everything, and everyone should actually, I suppose, come to consideration. With the new mind that we're in, M in D, right? M in the center, in D, mind. So I'm singing a bit louder than I did the last time, so hopefully come across a little different. But a great song, and look it up on YouTube. Tenement, a dirty street, walked and worn by shoeless feet, in silence long and so complete, watched by a shivering sun. Cold eyes in a small child's face, watching as the shadows race through walls and cracks that leave no trace, and daylight's brightest shine. The days of pearly Spencer, the race is almost run. Nose pressed hard in frosted glass, gazing at the swollen mass on the concrete fields where grows no grass, stumbled down the lawn. While iron trees smother the air, withering, they stand and stare through eyes that neither know nor care where the grass is gone. But the days of pearly Spencer, the race is almost run. The days of pearly Spencer, the race is almost run. Early wears your milk white skin, what's that stubble on your chin? It's buried in the white gut gin. You played and lost and won. You played a house that can't be beat. Now look, your head's bowed in defeat. You walk too far along the street where only rats can run. The days of pearly Spencer, the race is almost run. The days of pearly Spencer, the race is almost run. A tenement, the dirty street, walked toward my shoeless feet, in silence long and so complete, watched by a shivering sun. Old eyes in a small child's face, watching as the shadows race through walls and cracks that leave no trace, and diamonds brightly shine. The days of pearly Spencer, the race is almost run. The days of pearly Spencer, the race is almost run. The race is almost run. Yeah, well, difficult to get that part right. Can't do it justice because it's sort of a voice change, you know, also electronic or definitely an altered voice comes in with the like it was the days of Pearly Spencer. And there's also sort of a violins in the change there where I try to do it with the whistling, but maybe if I practice that a little bit more, get that transition down and make a sort of more complete version of that. But yeah, definitely if you're into music, have a listen to that one. I think remember, I was born in 1972. So growing up in the 80s, 90s, lots of these one-hit wonders. And I think for the most part that, the bands that jump in straight at number one and you never hear from them again. Lots of those around. And I think that's for a particular reason as well. We're to pay attention to some of their output and look for clues. Jeff Buckley was one of those, and I remember how I bought the Jeff Buckley Grace album was because I was watching TV and all of these stars came on. Again, stars, Brad Pitt. I can't even remember. Brad Pitt is the one that sticks out, but a whole documentary was made, an hour long or something. All of these different stars singing the praises of this guy, Jeff Buckley, and his album Grace. So I went out and bought Grace on the back of that, and well, it turns out that he is his own story. He decided to, at the height of his success, fully clothed while he was down by the river with a friend, just walk in and never come out again of the river. So death by suicide, and that's all we hear of him. But then you have these characters, these stars coming on. Promoting his work, which is very sparse and scarce. But I did buy Grace, and on the back of that, then I found out about his dad, which is Tim Buckley, who was an artist of considerable success as well, probably in the 60s, it's really early 70s. I bought an album of his as well. Some great songs in there as well. And well, I come to realize now that all these characters are crafted, and early deaths, they just exit stage left and come back in a different guise, playing a different role. That's how they control the narrative, and they also control the numbers involved in the troupe, the acting troupe. But yeah, all clues for us, and that's just brought me on from saying that all these one-hit wonders, yeah. Probably more poignant and more sort of meaningful than your average song. Whereas, again, with the right eyes, everything becomes meaningful. So, yeah, I hope that came across reasonably well anyway, and I hope there isn't too much disruption. Now, let me just read it as I normally do. So that would make give you a sort of better context, because I guess the lyrics have to be taken in conjunction with the music, which is brilliant by itself. But a tenement, a dirty street, walked and worn by shoeless feet, in silence long and so complete, watched by a shivering sun. Old eyes in a small child's face, watching as the shadows race through walls and cracks that leave no trace in daylight's brightness shone. And then you have the days of Pearly Spencer. The race is almost run. Nose pressed hard on frosted glass, gazing as the swollen mass on concrete fields where grows no grass stumbles blindly on. Iron trees smother the air, as opposed to the original crystalline trees, right? But withering, they stand and stare through eyes that neither know nor care where the grass has gone. The days of Pearly Spencer. So I'm interested just to find out a bit more about Pearly Spencer and what exactly that might represent, if there is some sort of historic character or supposedly historic character called Pearly Spencer, and what were his days like. The race is almost run. So Pearly wears your milk white skin. What's that stubble on your chin? It's buried in the rot gut gin. You've played and lost not one. You played a house that can't be beat. Now look, your head's bowed in defeat. You walk too far along the street where only rats can run. You're never meant for this arena, Pearly. A pearly whites with your teeth, T-E-E-T-H. Bring the two E's together, you get T-T-H. Just like truth, right? T-R-U-T-H. So yeah, the days of Pearly Spencer, the race is almost run. The days of Pearly Spencer, the race is almost run. And I just went over the first verse again. A tenement, a dirty street, walked and worn by shoeless feet, in silent song and so complete, watched by a shivering sun. Old eyes in a small child's face, watching as the shadows race through walls and cracks that leave no trace, and daylight's brightness shun. The days of Pearly Spencer. So, okay. Definitely try to remember to look into that a little bit more, although okay, just let me get rid of a few links there. Okay. Good night, Lee. You're probably well gone now, but that's good. Michael O'Rourke, good day from Perth, Western Australia. Much love. Enlightened people, yeah. Well, what is light, Michael? What is dark? All the deeper questions. We remember we have to sort of be willing to consider the opposite of everything. See where that takes us. And when we do that, then, well, for me anyway, we live in a completely unnatural system, in a completely unnatural state. So there's a purpose to this unnaturalness. And, well, this is what I think we have to work out. What's light is shade, what shade is light. Bob Dylan sang about idiot wind, it was gravity which pushed us in, destiny which tore us apart. You tamed a lion in my cage, but it just wasn't enough to change your heart. The lion, the loins in my cage, it just wasn't enough to change your heart. Now everything's a little upside down. As a matter of fact, the wheels have stopped. What's good is bad, what's bad is good. You find out when you reach the top, you're on the bottom. So yeah, I guess you got to climb that ladder. You got to climb that ladder. I don't even know what to get into. I was going to probably read a few chapters of Pinocchio, but I need to sort of really continue on that tale. I know there's lots more to offer from that and its interpretation and its sort of application. So maybe I'll do that. There isn't too many people in the chat, but if you've been following along and listening into reading the reading of Pinocchio, yeah. Eyes to the floor, ears open. The reason I picked this again, just to go over it, is it's said to be of special significance to the Masons. So that tells me itself that encoded within it is some basic and core truths. If only we can learn to see with the proper eyes. Pinocchio is pine in Italian. Pinocchio, pine eye, pineal. You have a head below and a head above. You have your head of your penis. You wear a helmet on your head, and there's an equation you see between the above and the below. And again, the Holy Spirit. We need to connect the thought to the act, the mind to the matter, and we do that via the spine, the penis, anagram of spine, pineal. Pineal is spine with the L inserted again. So yeah, not to dwell on, or not even to get into the physiological process that we are likely necessary to have to take in order to get where we want to go, maybe. Yeah, there's the symbolic one as well. But yeah, ultimately it comes down, because we are in the physical form, to a physical transformation. This is what transubstantiation is about, if we understand what the body of Christ represents. Which, as I've said before, it's the semen. It's the generator of all life, right? Whatever that entails in itself, wherever that comes from. This is what Stanley Kubrick ended 2001: A Space Odyssey with, right? When David Bowman, Rainbow Man, David Bowman, was reborn as none other than the Star Child, ARISTARCHUS, as the fetus, if you will, in the egg, the all-known fetus, overlooking, well, what do you think is Earth? But that's a big mistake lots of people have made. When I don't know anyone else who spotted this, actually, and not that I've looked too hard, but I imagine not too many might have spotted it. But when we have the sudden leap after Moonwatcher finds the monolith in the pit, or the crater, or as I've matched it up to Aristarchus, it's Aristarchus where this monolith, which is the one stone, monolith, literally translates as mono, one, and lith is stone. So one stone, let's break down the word stone, S-tone, one S-tone. The S-tone is whatever S sound, the S-tone is TH. That's the S-tone. The theta, right? The representation of the theta via vibration. But yeah. Oh shit. See, that's what I'm talking about. Stanley Kubrick. Oh yeah. So when then within the movie that sudden leap is made from Stone Age, if you Stone Age, right, to the modern day, a shot is taken of a craft, and what everyone assumes to be the Earth in the background. It's not the Earth. It's not the Earth. It's not over like some vast area of the Pacific where there's no land masses. It's not the Earth. It's actually, I'll tell you, my friend, the moon. And that's clarified at the end as well. So where Dave Bowman, again, in this embryo, this egg, E-G-G, egg, the heart of the material, Dave Bowman in the form of the fetus, right, or whatever you want to call it. The zygote, go back earlier still, the sperm is within the egg. And as I pointed out as well, Aristarchus, if you look at Aristarchus, well, when you see it, you can't not see it. It is the sperm within the egg. And I could go into detail about why that is as well, but I won't. But yeah, that's the moon that you're looking at. It's not the Earth. It's assumed it's the Earth, but it's not. And the moon plays a very central part indeed in the movie. So I was in America, Libra 61 star, and I definitely thought I'd do well there. Like, they love the Irish there where I was, and it was in Northern California, and definitely thought I would do well there easily. I mean, the Irish are lazy, but compared to, I don't mean this now in any bad way, you know, but some Irish people are pretty diligent and pretty sort of hard workers in an absolute sense, you know, which well, definitely you get rewarded for in the States, right? And I think that's why so many Irish people have done so well in the States. But look, doing well is relative as well, isn't it? What good does it profit a man to gain the world again, the material world, and lose his soul, right? You saw, not understand who he is. When Jesus, after fasting and becoming illuminated, he was taken up to the highest mountain by the devil. Remember the devil, D at the top, E, center, V, the lower, and then I, L. So you're entrenched in the material. And that's why the devil could offer Jesus the world, right? All the material forms. And Jesus forewent it, right? So he refused it because he knew he was enlightened now. Via fasting, by the way, via fasting. What you do when you fast is your stomach acid completely drains. You have no stomach acid left. And it reabsorbs into your system in a more primal form, I think. Spinal fluid, spinal tap. So anything then you do put into your stomach afterwards, well, will be absorbed immediately without attack into the bloodstream. That's how it's working. And then we have that sort of circle, the snake swallowing its tail, Ouroboros. They add an S at the end, but if you take the S away, the Ouroboros, you have a palindrome. It's the same at the forwards as it is backwards, but the S at the end is very, very significant as well. So yeah, well, these are the fundamentals of it, and we can't shy away from these things if we're out for the truth. These are the very basic things regarding all of us. It applies to all of us. So, you know, it's up to you whether you consider that. I'm certainly considering all of this sort of stuff. So it's difficult to sort of get too deep into it, because I know that I'm not going to be keeping this hangout on for very much longer, and it's such a long thing to get involved in one sense. How would you do it? I think the best thing would probably just be keep talking, but have a definitive theme in mind, and it's just a general theme. So describe the journey from the sphere Earth to the ball, or to the flat Earth, and then to within the structure of the flat Earth itself, where I've come. And that might be a better way of doing things, but again, it does still take a lot of time. And who am I aiming all of this at the end of the day, you know? So how you doing to Dominic? How you doing, Dominic? Good to see you, bud. Yeah, just waffling away as usual. And if you have been listening in on Pinocchio, that's what I started talking about there. I'm just going to read a few chapters, maybe 3 chapters, and then call it a night, just to get through it more than anything else for myself, because I'm fucking dragging it out at this stage, and I haven't been sort of reading it or rethinking it as well. So I want to sort of continue that, and we'll see where that goes. Otherwise, just played a few songs and just chatted a little. Not in too particular mind, as I've said in previous hangouts. Everything will just keep coming back to the same things ultimately. So if I was to expand on any particular area, it would always be centered around the same things. Fundamentally, the dodo and what it actually represents, and well, ARISTARCHUS then. And well, most especially how it applies to us and how we're central to all of this. And the OHL, I talked about the holy, HOLE, spirit. So yeah, this is all interconnected. The external is intricately entwined with the internal. This is where it gets to the heart of matters. Jesus points at his heart. If Jesus is the Son, how can the Son and if I'm Jesus, how can the Son and my heart be connected? Well, ARISTARCHUS. But you have to hear something first for the first time, and then you can do Jewish after that with it. No one can tell you the truth. You can only try to work stuff out for yourself. If someone does come along and told you the absolute truth, I say this to myself as well, I understand it, you wouldn't accept it. It wouldn't be true to you, because you have no reason to accept it over anything else you've heard. So for the most part, then it would remain true, but not for you. So therefore, it wouldn't be true. It's only when you come to realize it, at whatever stage down the line, then it becomes true. You can accept it, and that's how it works. There's no other way. So yeah, so that's what I'll do. I'll continue on with the Adventures of Pinocchio. As I said, the Pine Eye is the immediate translation, but you can be sure there's many other interpretations encoded in that. And we have a very interesting story as well in the first place. You know, wood. Jesus is a carpenter. Carpenter deals in dead wood. And if we're talking about destruction, you know, if we're in a state of destruction and disrepair, well, you know, carpenter would be perfect to represent that sort of fall, if you will. So yeah, Pinocchio is made of wood, and we're told at early stages that we are all Pinocchio, just like Alice is all of us. We're all Pinocchio as well, because a certain family is mentioned where the mother is Pinocchio, the father is Pinocchio, and all the children are named Pinocchio. So yeah, we can look out for these little pointers, but I'm trying not to say too much and comment too much, because I need to get the whole story first of all, you know. So that's why I was anxious to get through this. So let me continue. I'll put it on screen, and hopefully you'll just pick up where I left off the last time. There we go. Hopefully you'll pick up handily enough. And Oh yeah, so last time Pinocchio had an encounter with his fairy godmother, and of course she knew well he was lying, as he knew well he was lying, and every time he did, his nose grew a little bit longer. So I think we just moved it forward to here, chapter 18, to start it here. If I remembered that I read this last time, I'll just continue on to the next chapter. Anyway, yeah. Chapter 18. Pinocchio finds the fox and cat again and goes with them to sow the gold pieces in the fields of wonder. Crying as if his heart would break, the marionette moaned for hours over the length of his nose. No matter how he tried, it would not go through the door. The fairy showed no pity towards him, and she was trying to teach him a good lesson, so that he would stop telling lies, the worst habit any boy may acquire. When she saw him, pale with fright, and with his eyes half out of his head from terror, she began to feel sorry for him and clapped her hands together. 1,000 woodpeckers flew in through the window and settled themselves on Pinocchio's nose. They pecked and pecked so hard at that enormous nose that in a few moments it was the same size as before. "How good you are, my fairy," said Pinocchio, drying his eyes, "and how much I love you." "I love you too," answered the fairy, "and if you wish to stay with me, you may be my little brother, and I'll be your good little sister." So just a comment. Words like brother, sister, father, mother, let's break them down in a similar fashion, and they will make all the more sense. Or they can start to make all the more sense anyway. "I should like to stay, but what about my poor father? I've thought of everything. Your father has been sent for, and before night he will be here." "Not here, no, here, he'll be here." "Really?" cried Pinocchio joyfully. "Then, my good fairy, if you are willing, I should like to go and meet him. I cannot wait to kiss that dear old man who has suffered so much for my sake." "Surely, go ahead, but be careful not to lose your way. Take the wood path, and you'll surely meet him." Pinocchio set out, and as soon as he found himself in the wood, he ran like a hare. When he reached the giant oak tree, he stopped, for he thought he heard a rustle in the brush. He was right. There stood the fox and the cat, the two travelling companions with whom he had eaten at the inn of the Red Lobster. "Here comes our dear Pinocchio," cried the fox, hugging and kissing him. "How did you happen here?" "How did you happen here?" repeated the cat. "It's a long story," said the marionette. "I'll tell it to you. The other night, when you left me alone at the inn, I met the assassins on the road." "The assassins? Oh, my poor friend. And what did they want?" "They wanted my gold pieces." "Rascals," said the fox. "We're sort of rascals," added the cat. "But I began to run," continued the marionette, "and they after me until they overtook me and hanged me to the limb of that oak." Pinocchio pointed to the giant oak nearby. "Could anything be worse?" said the fox. "What an awful world we live in. And where shall we find a safe place for gentlemen like ourselves?" As the fox thought thus, Pinocchio noticed that the cat carried his right paw in a sling. "What happened to your paw?" he asked. The cat tried to answer, but he became so terribly twisted in his speech that the fox had to help him out. "My friend is too modest to answer. I'll answer for him. About an hour ago, he met an old wolf on the road. He was half starved and begged for help. Having nothing to give him, what do you think my friend did out of the kindness of his heart? With his teeth, he bit off the paw of his front foot and threw it at the poor beast so that it might have something to eat." As he spoke, the fox wiped off a tear. Pinocchio, almost in tears himself, whispered in the cat's ear, "If all the cats were like you, how lucky the mice would be." "And what are you doing here?" the fox asked the marionette. "I am waiting for my father, who will be here at any moment now." "And your gold pieces?" "I still have them in my pocket, except one which I spent at the inn of the Red Lobster." "To think that those 4 gold pieces might become 2,000 tomorrow. Why don't you listen to me? Why don't you sow them in the field of wonders? Today it is impossible. I'll go with you some other time." "Another day may be too late," said the fox. "Why?" "Because the field has been bought by a very rich man, and today is the last day that it will be open to the public." "How far is the field of wonders?" "Only 2 miles away. Will you come with us?" "We'll be there in half an hour. You can sow the money, and after a few minutes you will gather your 2,000 coins and return home rich. Are you coming?" Pinocchio hesitated a moment before answering, for he remembered the good fairy, old Geppetto, and the advice of the talking cricket. Then he ended by doing what all boys do when they have no heart and little brain. He shrugged his shoulders and said to the fox and the cat, "Let us go, I am with you." And they went. They walked and walked for half a day at least, and at last they came to a town called the City of Simple Simons. As soon as they entered the town, Pinocchio noticed that all the streets were filled with hairless dogs yawning from hunger, with sheared sheep trembling with cold, with combless chickens begging for a grain of wheat, with large butterflies unable to use their wings because they had sold all their lovely colours, with tailless peacocks ashamed to show themselves, and with bedraggled pheasants scuttling away hurriedly, grieving for their bright feathers of gold and silver lost to them forever. Through the crowd of paupers and beggars a beautiful coach passed now and again. Within it sat either a fox, a hawk, or a vulture. "Where's the Field of Wonders?" asked Pinocchio, growing tired of waiting. "Be patient, it is only a few more steps away." They passed through the city, and outside the walls they stepped into a lonely field which looked more or less like any other field. "Here we are," said the fox to the marionette. "Dig a hole here and put the pieces into it." The marionette obeyed. He dug the hole, put the 4 gold pieces into it, and covered them up very carefully. "Now," said the fox, "go to that nearby brook, bring back a pail full of water, and sprinkle it over the spot." Pinocchio followed the directions closely, but as he had no pail, he pulled off his shoe, filled it with water, and sprinkled the earth which covered the gold. Then he asked, "Anything else?" "Nothing else," answered the fox. "Now we can go. Return here within 20 minutes, and you will find the vine grown and the branches filled with gold pieces." Pinocchio, beside himself with joy, thanked the fox and cat many times and promised them each a beautiful gift. "We don't want any of your gifts," answered the 2 rogues. "It is enough for us that we have helped you to become rich, with little or no trouble. For this we are as happy as kings." They said goodbye to Pinocchio, and wishing him good luck, went on their way. Chapter 18, very interesting, and it just occurred to me as well, and this occurred to me before. This is a story about all of us, right? And how we must immerse ourselves in the material in order to know it, right? And in order to know its limitations. And then we can, I suppose, uh, um, as a counteraction, immerse ourselves in the immaterial, right? Before eventually we find our heart center understanding that in this form, anyway, we are that wonderful mix, I guess, miraculous mix. And again, all centered at the heart center, and it's no coincidence that earth and heart are anagram one another. So yeah, that's what I'll be bearing in mind as I move on. And I can see already that theme started playing out. We are in chapter 18, so let me move to chapter 19 without further delay. Okay, chapter 19. Pinocchio is robbed of his gold pieces and, in punishment, is sentenced to 4 months in prison. Remember I mentioned that 4 earlier on, the angel with the 4 faces, so we are the 0 divided into the infinity of the 8, and then we're the 8 divided into either in the form of an S or a backwards S or a 3 or a 3 or a 3 or a 2 or a 2. You put a 2 and a backwards 2 together, you get a heart, a symbol that millions earthwide cherish and, well, wear around their neck, at least on a continuous basis. U2, one of the most famous bands on earth, had a song called One. Yeah, so that's here, the 4. That's where the 4 comes into it for me. But anyway, yeah, let's continue. If the marionette had been told to wait a day instead of 20 minutes, the time could not have seemed longer to him. He walked impatiently to and fro, and finally turned his nose towards the field of wonders. And as he walked with hurried steps, his heart beat with an excited tick, tack, tick. I just mentioned the tic tac toe and the X's and O's recently. Anyway, X's and O's, you have the O with the X pointing to a central null point, 0 point. The X marks the spot in the heart center. Right? Anyway, just as if it were a wall clock, and his busy brain kept thinking, what if instead of 1,000 I should find 2,000, or if instead of 2,000 I should find 5,000 or 100,000? I'll build myself a beautiful palace with 1,000 stables filled with 1,000 wooden horses to play with, a cellar overflowing with lemonade and ice cream soda, and a library of candies and fruits, cakes and cookies. Yeah, just what it called on the back of the last comment. We're making our way through the voices, voices, and the virtues associated with the physical, the material aspect. Thus amusing himself with fancies, he came to the field, and there he stopped to see if by any chance a vine filled with gold coins was in sight. But he saw nothing. He took a few steps forward, and still nothing. He stepped into the field. He went up to the place where he had dug the hole and buried the gold pieces. Again, nothing. Pinocchio became very thoughtful, and forgetting his good manners altogether, he pulled a hand out of his pocket and gave his head a thorough scratching. As he did so, he heard a hearty burst of laughter close to his head. He turned sharply, and there, just above him on the branch of a tree, sat a large parrot, busily preening his feathers. What are you laughing at? Pinocchio asked peevishly. I'm laughing because, in preening my feathers, I tickled myself under the wings. The marionette did not answer. He walked to the brook, filled his shoe with water, and once more sprinkled the ground which covered the gold pieces. Another burst of laughter, even more impertinent than the first, was heard in the quiet field. Well, cried the marionette angrily this time, may I know, Mr. Parrot, what amuses you so? I'm laughing at those simpletons who believe everything they hear and allow themselves to be caught so easily in the traps set for them. Ha ha! Flat earthers, Marx argent, Marx silver, right? You take the R to mean is, Mark agent, Mark is agent. Anyway, you perhaps mean me. Yes, I fucking mean you. I certainly do mean you, poor Pinocchio. You who are such a little silly as to believe that gold can be sown in a field just like beans or squash. I too believed that once, and today I'm very sorry for it. Today, but too late. I've reached the conclusion that in order to come by money honestly, one must work and know how to earn it with hand or brain. So just to comment, gold, AU, most valuable of substances, but not really as well. It's all about the symbolic, right? But I was thinking about gold and where it actually comes from and how it's mined or collected. And once again, yeah, and the detritus, it's all the detritus. The veins, I think you will, it can be gathered from the veins of the giant crystalline tree. And I say it was one tree, so it was just one tree with branches earth wide, you know, all the desert areas now. This is particularly significant because in terms of a former barrier, intact barrier, this is where the giant sort of supporting tree pillars were located. This is why we have these vast areas of sand right now. But yeah, gold, very significant indeed. And ARISTARCHUS, anagram of Christ Aura, Christ AU, RA, gold sun, Christ gold sun. Okay. So that's tying in earlier on what I was just talking about, Pinocchio being of a wooden form. And when we think about what wood might be, no trees, no forests, and flat earth. Yeah. We are trees in a big sense. I mentioned that earlier on tonight. I can't think of the context in which it occurred, but I said perfect. But anyway, that's a different matter. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about, said Marionette, who was beginning to tremble with fear. Too bad, I'll explain myself better, said the parrot. Too bad, I'll explain myself better. No, I won't care about that now. While you're away in the city, the fox and the cat returned here in a great hurry. They took the 4 gold pieces. And who took 4 gold pieces now? Which you had buried, and ran away as fast as the wind. If you can catch them, you're a brave one. Pinocchio's mouth opened wide. He would not believe the parrot's words and began to dig away furiously at the earth. He dug and he dug until the hole was as big as himself, but no money was there. Every penny was gone. In desperation, he ran to the city and went straight to the courthouse to report the robbery to the magistrate. Okay, just looking at the word magistrate, breaking it down, first 3 letters, M-G. Okay, anyway, the judge was a monkey, a large gorilla, venerable with age. A flowing white beard covered his chest, and he wore gold-rimmed spectacles from which the glasses had dropped out. The reason for wearing these, he said, was that his eyes had been weakened by the work of many years. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier on, I definitely mentioned it before, in terms of our greater immateriality, or immaterial natures. I hold that our bodies are sort of avatars or genetic mix of certain animals, apes, animal types anyway. It's more especially than other types, even though I hold that all animal types are within all other animal types, but just to a more prominent or less prominent degree. And I think this is what evolution, in terms of an encoded story, is trying to hint at as well. But yeah, primarily of ape, pig primarily, ape, dog and reptile genetic mix. So, yeah. Pinocchio, standing before him, told his pitiful tale word by word. He gave the names and the descriptions of the robbers and begged for justice. Just ice. The judge listened to him with great patience. A kind eye shone in his eye. A kind look shone in his eyes. He became very much interested in the story. He felt moved. He almost wept. When the marionette had no more left to say, the judge put out his hand and rang a bell. At the sound, 2 large mastiffs appeared, dressed in carabineers' uniforms. Then the magistrate, pointing to Pinocchio, said in a very solemn voice, "This poor simpleton has been robbed of 4 gold pieces. Take him therefore and throw him into prison." The marionette, on hearing the sentence passed upon him, was thoroughly stunned. He tried to protest, but the 2 officers clapped their paws on his mouth and hustled him away to jail. Poor Pinocchio. Sure, there's a good reason now, everything for a good reason. Yeah, I guess if you're a fool, if you're going to be a fool, you need to find out that you were a fool in order to learn not to be a fool the next time. Right? There he had to remain for 4 long, weary months, but if it had not been for a very lucky chance, he probably would have had to stay there longer. For, my dear children, you must know that it happened just then that the young emperor ruled over the city of Simple Simons, SS, Simple Simon, Simon Jack, another SS. You can see on the screen there, if we invert one S and overlay it on the other S, there we have an 8, right? The infinity sign or the twisted 0. So that's one of the quarters, the SSSS. And isn't it funny that Simon Shack's model, right? Simon Shack's model of the heliocentric system, but the adapted heliocentric or the alternative system, to the heliocentric system is the geocentric SSSS model. Literally, he called it that. He's changed it in its latest form, I think, to a Tycho Brahe sort of slashed ode to Tycho Brahe, but Simon Shack is still mentioned in there. And as I hold it, that's the next to the truth, that's the most accurate model that you will ever come across. It beats, absolutely sure of it, it beats the heliocentric model hands down. But again, Simon doesn't ask the right question. Simple Simon says, "Simon, why did you not ask the right questions?" And when Flat Earth comes up with this man, whoever he is, yes, it's stupid, it's retarded, it makes no sense, and it won't be discussed in my forum, which sort of got me banned from thinking, or helped to anyway. After that, I said, well, there's something up here. But now I can see that's his model. It's the SSSS. So, yeah. It's eight. In 4 quarters, yeah. Anyway. But yeah, so if not for the emperor who ruled over the city of Simple Simons had gained a great victory over his enemy, and in celebration thereof, he ordered illuminations, fireworks, shows of all kinds, and best of all, the opening of all prison doors. If the others go, I go too, said Pinocchio to the jailer. Not you, answered the jailer. You are one of those. I beg your pardon, interrupted Pinocchio. I too am a thief. In that case, you roll. So you can be a thief, but don't be a fucking fool. Okay. In that case, you are also free, said the jailer. Taking off his cap, he bowed low and opened. Lo, L-O-H, L-O-W. Lo and behold. Behold, lo and behold thee. Taking off his cap, he bowed low and opened the door of the prison, and Pinocchio ran out and away, would never look backwards. So just as I mentioned, lo and behold, yeah, that will, in terms of the categorization of the letters, they into the grouping O, H, and L. L, H, and O, Lee Harvey Oswald. Yeah, maybe the code dodo will play its own significant role when I come to doing that. And I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will, because it will help solidify, I guess, the reason for the categorization. So let me just continue on. Chapter 20. I think there is 30. Let me just check that again. If 36, if it's 36, that would make sense. 6 times 6. Let me just contents. Just check that, and back to chapter 20 then. Yeah, 36. Look, that was that's 36. Of course it is. And we start out in the last 16 chapters, which is 8-8. Freed from prison, Pinocchio sets out to return to the ferry, but on his way he meets a serpent and later is caught in a trap. Fancy that. Fancy the happiness of Pinocchio on finding himself free. Without saying yes or no, he fled from the city and set out on the road that was to take him back to the house of the lovely fairy. It had rained for many days, and the road was so muddy that at times Pinocchio sank down almost to his knees. But he kept on bravely. Tormented by the wish to see his father and his fairy sister with azure hair, he raced like a greyhound. As he ran, he was splashed with mud even up to his cap. How unhappy I have been, he said to himself. And yet I desire everything, for I am certainly very stubborn and stupid. I will always have my own way. Jesus, Pinocchio, I wonder what happened to you in prison. I wonder how did that long nose of yours serve. Anyway, I will always have my own way. I won't listen to those who love me and who have more brains than I. But from now on, I'll be different, and I'll try to become a more obedient boy. I have found out beyond any doubt whatever that disobedient boys are certainly far from happy, and that in the long run they always lose out. I wonder if father is waiting for me. Will I find him at the fairy's house? It is so long, poor man, since I have seen him, and I do so want his love and his kisses. And will the fairy ever forgive me for all I have done? She who has been so good to me and to whom I owe my life. Can there be a worse or more heartless boy than I am anywhere? So Pinocchio is a little bit conflicted here, isn't he? And it's a sort of it's a surface confliction. There's no hiding it. As he spoke, he stopped suddenly, frozen with terror. What was the matter? An immense serpent lay stretched across the road. A serpent with, and wasn't I just after talking about apes, serpents, pigs? Who was the other one? Dogs. In terms of genetic mix for our bodies. Well, there we have the serpent, and Eve takes a bite from the serpent, takes the bite of the apple from the serpent, right? Because, well, in simple terms, a serpent crawls along the ground. It's the closest thing to the ground you will get. So when we think in terms of materialism, and I venture into it from Genesis 1, into Genesis 2, the world of division. Okay. A serpent with a bright green skin, fiery eyes which glowed and burned, and a pointed tail that smoked like a chimney. How frightened was poor Pinocchio! He ran back wildly for half a mile, and at last settled himself atop a heap of stones to wait for the serpent to go on his way and leave the road clear for him. He waited an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, but the serpent was always there, and even from afar one could see the flash of his red eyes and the column of smoke which rose from his long pointed tail. The dragon. The Welsh dragon. Pinocchio, trying to feel very brave, walked straight up to him and said in a sweet, soothing voice, "I beg your pardon, Mr. Serpent. Would you be so kind as to step aside to let me pass?" You might as well have talked through a wall. The serpent never moved. Once more, in the same sweet voice, he spoke. "You must know, Mr. Serpent, that I am going home, where my father is waiting for me. It is so long since I have seen him. Would you mind very much if I passed?" He waited for some sign of an answer to his questions, but the answers did not come. On the contrary, the green serpent, who had seemed until then wide awake and full of life, became suddenly very quiet and still. His eyes closed, and his tail stopped smoking. "Is he dead, I wonder?" said Pinocchio, rubbing his hands together happily. Without a moment's hesitation, he started to step over him, but he had just raised one leg when the serpent shot up and like a spring, and the marionette fell head over heels backwards. He fell so awkwardly that his head stuck in the mud, and there he stood with his legs straight up in the air. Oh, an easy target. I bet you that might have happened so many times previously in history or in jail, Pinocchio. Oh gosh. Don't drop the varnish in the toilets, Pinocchio. Anyway, that's a distant memory for him now. So here we have him stuck head in the mud with legs straight up in the air. At the sight of the marionette kicking and squirming like a young whirlwind, the serpent laughed so heartily and so long that at last he burst an artery and died on the spot. Pinocchio freed himself from his awkward position and once more began to run in order to reach the fairy's house before dark. As he went, the pangs of hunger grew so strong that, unable to withstand them, he jumped into a field to pick a few grapes that tempted him. Woe to him! So even a very brief encounter with the serpent, don't you feel that that's pretty significant again? So yeah, definitely something to come back to. And as I said, for myself, when I have read all of this, I will go back and just pick out an audio version to listen myself in the space of 2 or 3 hours, and having absorbed, I guess, the bones of the story. So no sooner had he reached the grapevine than crack went his legs. Poor marionette was caught in a trap set there by a farmer for some weasels which came every night to steal his chicken. He's certainly going through the mill, isn't he? Life is an anagram of if-el. So just because it's 777 LLL chapter 21, I think I'll finish it here. 2 pages, and yeah, without further ado, Pinocchio is caught by a farmer who uses him as a watchdog for his chicken coop. Pinocchio, as you may well imagine, began to scream and weep and beg, but all was of no use, for no houses were to be seen, and not a soul passed by on the road. Night came on. A little because of the sharp pains in his legs, a little because of fright at finding himself alone in the darkness of the field, the marionette was about to faint when he saw a tiny glowworm flickering by. He called to her and said, "Dear little glowworm, worm W-R-M." We have the W with the prominence at the start, and again W, the very heart of the material, in the L category. So yeah, worm. Where do you find worm? In the heart of the earth, right? "Dear little glowworm, will you please set me free?" "Poor little fellow," replied the glowworm, stopping to look at him with pity. "How came you to be caught in this trap?" "I stepped into this lonely field to take a few grapes, and, well, are the grapes yours?" "No. Who taught you to take things that do not belong to you? I was hungry. Hunger, my boy, is no reason for taking something which belongs to another." It's true," cried Pinocchio in tears. "I won't do it again. Just then, the conversation was interrupted by approaching footsteps. It was the owner of the field who was coming on tiptoes to see if, by any chance, he had caught the weasels which had been eating his chicken. Great was his surprise when, on holding up his lantern, he saw that instead of a weasel, he had caught a boy. Boy is B-O-Y, oi, 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 Captain. The I or the Y also fits into, well, the O category. Sorry, the H category, actually. So again, take that boy, take that upper pathway in terms of embracing the material aspect to you, and I'm sure. Well, I was going to say if you if you can slip in L there somewhere, boy, or ball, B-O-L, ball, right? Anyway. Ah, you little thief, said the farmer in an angry voice. So you were the one who steals my chickens, not I. No, cried Pinocchio, sobbing bitterly. Came here only to take a few grapes. He who steals grapes may very easily steal chickens also. Take my word for it, I'll give you a lesson that you'll remember for a long while. He opened a trap, grabbed the marionette by the collar, and carried him to the house as if he were a puppy. When he reached the yard in front of the house, he flung him to the ground, put a foot in his neck, and said to him roughly, "It is late now, and it's time for bed. Tomorrow we'll settle matters. In the meantime, since my watchdog died today, you may take his place and guard my hen house." No sooner said than done. He slipped the dog collar around Pinocchio's neck and tightened it so that it would not come off. A long iron chain was tied to the collar. The other end of the chain was nailed to the wall. "If tonight it should happen to rain," said the farmer, "you can sleep in that little doghouse nearby, where you will find plenty of straw for a soft bed. It has been Melampo's bed for 3 years. Melampo, M-P-O, okay, for 3 years, and it will be good enough for you. And if by any chance any thieves come by, be sure to bark." After this last warning, the farmer went into the house and closed the door and barred it. Poor Pinocchio huddled close to the doghouse, more dead than alive from cold, hunger, and fright. Now and again he pulled and tugged at the collar, which nearly choked him, and cried out in a weak voice, "I deserve it. Yes, I deserve it. I have been nothing but a truant and a vagabond. I've never obeyed anyone, and I've always done as I pleased. If I were only like so many others, and had studied and worked and stayed with my poor old father, I should not find myself here now, in this field and in the darkness, taking the place of a farmer's watchdog. Oh, if I could start all over again, but what is done can't be undone, and I must be patient." After this little sermon to himself, which came from the very depths of his heart, Pinocchio went into the doghouse and fell asleep. Into the doghouse. We think it's coincidence that dog and God backwards are so named or so called. I don't think so. I think if we look for the connection, we'll find it. My own thoughts, in a general sense, a dog lives in the sort of eternal presence, outside of time, if you will. And, well, I think fundamentally that's what we are, outside of time, when we understand what time might be, or how it is measured anyway, how it's quantified. And it's all got to do with the sun. So once we understand what the sun may be, then we can get a better grasp on time, and, well, lead us to a better grasp on what it might mean. Yeah, I don't have too much to say there, but clearly symbolic. So there's lots of things that can and should be read into this, but yeah, I'm going to keep that for the next time. That leaves us 15 chapters, so hopefully get to that in the next. It'll take me too much to read, finish that in 2 sittings, and I definitely want to sort of hurry it up a bit anyway and sort of progress. But everything in its time, and yeah, I hope if you're following along, you're getting something from it. Maybe encouraged to read it yourself, or else, if if you don't do that, yeah, hear it in an audiobook. They're all freely available on YouTube. So, okay. So I think I'll probably call it a night there. Not much else to say. Unless there's any questions or anything. But I think everything is pretty quiet. So, yeah, no worries. No worries. Libra 61 star. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, I'll see you the next time. Likewise to anyone who's left. And Irving, TT, Dominic, Michael. Yeah, that's on topic today. Nothing sort of really developed as well. It's day by day at the minute. But it's definitely well beyond flat Earth, I think we'll agree. Okay, so yeah, on that note, let me get the usual. Up and yeah. Yeah, my parting words, learn to recognize the theater and, well, take note of Pinocchio's adventure here because ultimately I think it applies to all of us. And it's only when we can sort of recognize it, when we can see through, we're encouraged, of course, to see through the literal. So it is all symbolic. But yeah, maybe we can find out a whole hell of a lot about our own journey and our own sort of process of becoming real boys. So, and girls, boys and girls. Yeah, so I leave it with the usual, and again, nothing nailed down, nothing too specific dwelt on tonight. The general chat. So I leave it with the usual, and until the next time, take it easy, friend. Oh, I have spent it in good company, and all the harm that I did, as it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit to memory now I can't recall. So far to me the parting last good night and joy be with you. If I had money enough to spend in leisure time to sit a while, there is a fair maid in town that slowly has my heart begun. Rosy cheeks, ruby lips, and she has my heart begun. But since it falls onto my lot that I should rise and you should know, I gently rise and softly call the night and joy with you. I gently rise and softly call. Night, friends. Oh, well, Steve, I love you.